will continue with our council meeting, which was adjourned last night. It's Wednesday the 16th, it's 9:38 a.m. It's 2018. So we'll call Anna Casey-Cox. And you're welcome to bring any of your support people. Anna's presenting for Living Wage Waikato. Anna, you have 9 minutes to speak. Your time's here. That includes any questions. There will be no overruns. Once you're finished, you will have to stop wherever you are. I just want to welcome you here today and thank you for coming and presenting. So I'll hand over to you.
Toa, nā mihi ki nā mana whenua o tēnei rohe nā te wairere, nā mihi ki te rangatira o tēnei rohe kingi tu heitia, tēnā koutou ki nā kaiko nehera o tēnei rohe. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Today we're presenting on behalf of the Waikato Living Wage Network, and this is Carolyn, who's also part of the Living Wage Network. The Living Wage Network is a broad-based network which is comprised of a number of different organisations from many sectors of society, including faith, union and community. And our submission today is supported by a variety of organisations, and we're asking Hamilton City Council to endorse the living wage by paying all direct and contracted workers a living wage. As you've highlighted, approximately 250 of the directly employed staff are paid less than the living wage at the moment. And I guess you hold a range of different contracts with a variety of different organisations, and including cleaners, who are mostly women, and tend to rely on the minimum wage increases for their pay rises. And we know that the minimum wage is not enough to deliver people out of poverty, but the living wage can. And with your contracts, you do have the power to say, unless you pay a living wage, you won't be getting the contract. So that's the power of council. And you won't be alone in this move. Wellington City Council will be seeking accreditation in 2019 to be the first fully living wage council in Aotearoa. And Christchurch is paying the living wage to all directly employed staff. And they're looking at moving that to contracted staff as well. Contracted organisations, and Auckland is on a pathway to also pay all directly employed staff across council and CCOs by 2019. And last week we heard the good news that Waikato Regional Council is paying the living wage to all their directly employed staff. So the movement is happening across the country. We think it's a profound movement, recognising that we need to do more for our workers in New Zealand. There's over 600,000 workers in New Zealand who are not earning enough to afford to live well in our country. So, ngā mihi, thank you.
Thank you. We'll take a question from Dave. Councillor Dave, sorry.
Thank you. Mayor Andrew. Anna, thanks for your submission. It's been a long battle here, which we haven't yet won, but there was a proposal from our Chief Executive to start with direct council employees here with the living wage, which has for the time being been rejected by council, but that was as the first phase, if you like, because you've obviously asked for indirect employees also to receive that. And I noticed you said Christchurch seems to be going down that path. Is that an acceptable way of handling it from your point of view, if there's a plan eventually to have everyone come on stream, to have some of them getting it before others?
Yeah, I think it's about making the commitment to being a living wage council, in the first instance, and that's what we're asking for that commitment. And then how you do it is, there'll be some variety to that. All the councils are doing it slightly differently, but starting with directly employed staff. The issue with not including contracted staff as well is that there's a tendency then to contract out to save costs. And that's why the living wage movement's very clear on including contracted staff. And I understand that's a real difference to what you're proposing in terms of the minimum wage that's being put forward at the moment in the draft plan. So, yeah, the living wage is a step further than that, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Councillor Angela.
Thanks for your submission, and I am racking my brain to think of the phrase. You may know it, or Councillor McPherson may be able to tell me. Have you, with the councils that you listed who are moving to the living wage, how do they propose to manage, what's that called, when...
Relativity?
Relativity, thank you.
Yeah, so the living wage movement doesn't engage in that debate because we're about lifting the bottom up. So I can't, I don't know how they're dealing with that issue. It's not a living wage issue from our perspective. A living wage is about the bottom up. That's it. I mean, partly it's about building that understanding throughout council. I understand there was a survey done amongst staff here and that there was 70% maybe in support for the living wage. I might not be right on that, but I think that's the kind of thing that is required. It's about building support. It's not about saying what you earn versus me. It's saying we want everybody to be okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Gary.
Now, have you done any analysis on the possibility that raising some people's wage to the living wage could make them uneconomical employees? They could be replaced by machines and things like that. So they actually, your efforts to improve their lives could actually wreck their lives?
I think that there's research that suggests the living wage doesn't wreck people's lives.
No, it's not that. It's the flow-on impact of them losing their job because they're replaced by A, a machine, or B, the employer just cannot maintain their position.
I think the future of work in terms of technology is a whole nother topic. And no, I haven't done an analysis on that. The living wage has been researched elsewhere, and when it is increased, it does show actually that there isn't any negative impact on employment. In fact, people who earn the living wage tend to spend all the money they earn, so it generates more work in areas sometimes like hospitality, etc., because people can afford to do more things, to live more and to participate more. So it generates more money circulating in the economy.
You've seen research with that, have you?
Yes.
Okay. Would you mind?
I can share it with you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation, Anna.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to our next presenter, Anna Casey-Cox. Poverty Action Waikato. You have 9 minutes. The board, the clock's on the bottom right-hand corner of the board to start when you're ready.
Yeah. Yeah, kia ora, and I'm introducing Shepherd as well. He's part of the Poverty Action Network. We are a network of different organisations committed to advocacy around reducing poverty in Kirikiriroa and in the Waikato. I was really pleased to see in the Council's deliberations over the draft 10-year plan, the proposal put forward by Councillor McPherson and I think also Martin Gallagher as well, around the $2 million, that putting aside $2 million for the housing assistance, or I can't remember the exact term that was used. We do have a government at the moment that's taking steps to reduce the level of housing deprivation in New Zealand, and we do look forward to the difference that the Kiwi Build initiative will make around generating some of more affordable housing. But our networks are in conversations with the street community in Hamilton, and we know that there are many complex issues that intertwine in the lives of people who are sleeping on our streets. And over the last 3 decades, we've been on a path of increasing inequality, and we've created the conditions for deprivation, for abuse, poverty, and for addictions to flourish. We've created the wrong conditions for life, and we do little to enable those who are excluded to come back from the brink of despair. We have few places of belonging for our community for people who live on the edges, and there are many people existing on the edge coping with abuse, loss and struggle. And it doesn't take much when you're on that edge to find yourself on the street with nowhere to go. The night shelter is there, but the street has its own culture and it can be cruel, tough, bullying, and with its own pecking order. So some choose to keep on the street rather than to engage too much in that hierarchy. And for people who are addicted, staying out of housing and avoiding those costs can mean another hit. People have bedrooms on our streets, places they call home under our bridges, places that they claim as theirs. And the kuia who visit the homeless along the river, often, offering food and conversation may be dismissed by some, but for others they're a way back into a world that might just care. The People's Project is a fantastic initiative, and some are told to go there, and for some it works. It was all they needed. But then we have the people who don't want to go there. And we have a culture that forces people to sort of stay on the street. Boarding houses and hostels can be places to go for a night, places to recover from the toxicity of addiction. Food and clothes can be easy to come by, but the shelter can be hard to find. So we're sort of excited about that 2 million. We know it's probably off the cards now, but we still want to talk about it because we see it as an opportunity for you to engage in this work more thoroughly. When the pensioner housing was sold, we were, in the first round was sold, we were of the understanding that money would be reinvested into housing. And this would be a great follow-on from that. That was our understanding in terms of engaging in that whole process of that sale, that money wouldn't go back in just a big pool, but it would come back to the community in some form to support housing. So I really want to encourage that conversation, and it would allow the community to try some things, to try the idea of a wet house, which Wellington is looking at. You know, we have severely addicted people living in Hamilton now, and we need to think creatively about how we can support them. We could try other initiatives. That 2 million could just be that little bit of funding that would get some of these things underway. Kia ora.
Councillor Siggy.
Submission, fabulous submission. And look, you talked about the 2 million, and to me it was a guilt token. And then you went on to 21 million. That would have been great. That were the money that was the pensioner housing was sold for. So do you still believe that that would be the right amount of money to actually put back into the community?
No, I mean, there's a raft of things to do in the community, and housing is one of those things. Yeah. I think the 2 million is, I mean, we didn't support the sale of the pension housing, but I think the proposal is a good one because it's at least something that the council will be contributing towards that hard end of housing. I mean, you're doing some work now, I understand, around the affordable housing, which is fantastic, in the affordable housing areas, etc. But this is about the community that is on the street, and the People's Project is fantastic, but there are some other things that could be done around that to strengthen what we're doing.
And you think 2 million is enough?
I think it just is a contribution.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Dave.
I'm pleased that Councillor Siggy thinks 2 million isn't quite enough. I'll be seeking some support for a greater amount from her. Would Poverty Action or some of the individuals like yourself in it be willing to work with Council in developing a policy for a fund like that 2 million or whatever amount it ends up as for how it should be administered and what it should be supporting?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I mean a whole range of networks would be interested in that, I'm sure. So yeah.
Thanks.
Definitely.
Councillor Robb.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. And going back onto the $2 million fund that we had in the original deliberations, do you have some ideas as to how we might get the best value if we had that $2 million fund? You know, how we could use that to get, if you like, the best bang for our buck. Yeah. And I know we've had a little bit of feedback from the Bryant Trust when they put their submission in too, also about reinstituting that fund again. I think if I go back and think about the deliberations, it seemed to me that there'd been very little work done on how that 2 million could be effectively spent. And I think that might have been a reason why it didn't get the leagues to get through at that time.
Okay, so
But
Dave's suggestion of working together to figure that out would be welcomed. And we're doing some research at the moment, and this is an example, just an example. It's largely unfunded research on looking at youth homelessness in Hamilton. We don't have any dedicated funds for that at the moment, but we know it's a huge issue. And so there's people doing it, you know, of their own accord because it's such an important issue. But that's the kind of fund that could support that kind of work to happen so that we do know what we're dealing with in Hamilton, so we can engage adequately with our young people to figure out what might work for them in that space. So that's just an idea of what some of that 2 million could go towards. But yeah, it's a conversation to have, and I appreciate Dave's suggestion that we can work together to frame that.
Good, thank you.
Councillor Mark.
Morning, Anna. I just want to draw your attention to question 7 in your submission regarding the mobile retail trucks. Can you please give me an insight into, are they selling on the streets or are they selling in people's driveways, or what are you aware of that's going on in those areas?
A bit of a mixture of both, and this is an issue we've discussed previously with council. It's really hard to prove, I guess, where the point of sale is for the mobile retail trucks. So often, you know, whether they're selling on a public place is hard to prove, but we know that they're causing huge problems in our community. And in the submission, I have suggested a couple of ideas for a way of approaching that. And one of the issues for our lower income communities is access to shopping complexes, ready access to whatever it is that they might need, often dependent on public transport and lacking cars to get around. So one of the things that can be done is to make sure that people in lower income communities are adequately supported with transport, and that would help alleviate some of the pressure that's put on people through the mobile retail trucks.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentations, and yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you for what you do for our community, for the vulnerable.
Thank you.
Okay, Sonia Ferguson. Anna. Okay, Anna Casey Cox. You have 9 minutes. Time's up in the bottom right-hand corner.
Anna version 3.
Just start when you're ready.
Yep. Okay, so kia ora again. We're the Go Eco team, and we've got Kelly and Tanya as well as part of this submission. We're speaking on basically 3 topics that relate to the petition that was online through Action Station, and we've got the petition here that we are presenting to council. It will need to be checked by Leanne's team as valid, but 200 people have signed our petition to keep Kirikiriroa Hamilton beautiful. We think that's actually an exceptional number of people because our petition is not straightforward. It involves 3 topics and focus areas that seem somewhat distinct, but they're not. I'm just going to push this thing. No. It's on red. Oh, it's now on red. Yeah. So this is something we just found recently, which from the Ministry of Environment, which supports our submission as well. The 3 areas that we're focusing on are around public transport, cycling infrastructure, waste minimisation, and our gully restoration. So those are the 3 topics that we're going to be speaking to as part of our submission. Obviously, huge links to reducing greenhouse gas emissions in New Zealand and doing our bit for climate change. So Kelly will just talk about the cycling. Tanya will talk about the cycle. Well, you can tell Tanya's going to talk about the cycling part. There you go.
Kia ora. So, New Zealand's gross emissions have increased by 19.6% since 1990. So this includes methane from the dairy and carbon dioxide from road transportation. So this basically means transport is the second greenhouse gas emission source and has been far the greatest contributor to our rising emissions. Go Eco encourages investment in sustainable transportation, in particular public transport, cycling and walking. Go Eco supports the investment in the Hamilton Biking Plan. Well done, and it's wonderful to be part of a city that's forward-thinking and recognising the positive outcomes cycling has for the city and people. A commitment to cycling is a commitment to transitioning away from a fossil fuel economy. We request that the funding and the timing of the projects that encourage commuter cycling are prioritised, with funding brought forward to be completed in 3 years. The first cycling priority project we identify as encouraging increased commuting cycling is the school link. This will connect 15 schools and almost 9,500 students. This link will not only increase safety and convenience for all students, but all cyclists using this route. Reducing the number of cars on these roads will reduce during school pickup times will provide additional benefits to all road users. Getting the school link up and cycling as soon as possible is sending strong positive messages to parents that cycling is a commuting option and is training up our next generation of city commuters to choose cycling.
Am I allowed to touch it? Okay. I'm Kelly. I'm here to talk a little bit more about waste, and we want to thank you and acknowledge the extensive amount of work that you've already done in improving waste around the city. And so we want that to continue on, particularly with regard to improving the curbside services available, and again, particularly with organic waste. That's a really big one for us. We want to remind you of previous petitions that have come through this council that we've been involved with, including the 1,067 people who wanted plastics 3 to 7 to be recycled at curbside, and also over 100 who signed the very aspirational goal of it as zero waste kirikiriroa. That's a really big one. We ask that in those curbside services that you do separate out the glass. We can just utilise the green bins that we already have to do that. It can contaminate the waste streams when glass is broken in those container bucket things. Okay. We do ask that you put $100,000 towards education through and using general rates for that. And the reason education is so key is because there's no point you investing all of these extra facilities and services if our communities aren't educated enough about what they can recycle and how to do it appropriately. We'd like to focus on waste at events, particularly in places like Claudelands and the Gardens. We don't think it should just go down to the event organiser to do that, particularly when it's a volunteer group organising that event. We've had lots of calls into Go Eco over the last year asking for support, and we'd love to be able to help them a little bit more. So it'd be great if that could be supported more. So again, education is key. We want to give people the right choices and make it easier for them, and Go Eco will support you to do that and to help. We'll continue the work that we do, a lot of it volunteer as well. Because we want to see this happen for our city. And Mayor Andrew, thank you for wearing a tie that supports the work that we do.
Yeah.
It's the first time I've ever been called green.
And last but not least, on our last point for our submission, our community is passionate about nature spaces, and figures from Council suggest that between the 8th of July 2013 and the 27th of November 2017, volunteers undertook about 54,000 hours of work in our gullies and nature spaces, and that's an average of about 33 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that's the kind of contribution that you're getting from our community in this work. And if this work isn't well coordinated and supported, including with maintenance, etc., then it may be somewhat in vain. So we do really encourage restoration investment to be well planned, coordinated, and to be effective. And we see this as the council's role to make happen. And so we've asked in our submission for you to support the Gully development plan, which is $8 million over the 10-year period. We understand that's been put forward by the Parks Department, and it is what would be required to develop our gully systems to a place where we can all really enjoy them, where our community can really benefit from this really unique thing that we have in Hamilton that actually is also home to some of our very unique species, including the bats, and I think you've been hearing a bit more about bats lately. So we really do, and also support, of course, waiwhakariki, and we really are pleased to see that in your draft 10-year plan. So I think there's a group talking later today about that, but we just really support them and the work that's going on at waiwhakariki, and for that to be open to the community. We want to work with you to keep Kirikiriroa Hamilton beautiful, and thank you for considering our submission.
Thank you. We'll go to questions. There's only a minute left, so we need to go quickly. We won't be getting through all of you. I'm going to start with Leo.
Yes, thank you. Congratulations on your submission. Just on the cycling, let's get the infrastructure right first, because we've got a number of cycling lanes which vary from 1.5 metres to about 20 centimetres in places. Do you think that we really need to embark a huge education campaign, because we've got cyclists who hate the motorist and the motorist who hates the cyclist? It's going to take a long period of time, but would you people be keen to get involved in this type of thing?
Definitely, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, our focus for education, the suggestion was around waste minimisation, and you do some great work actually through council in terms of education for cycling and safety. But we would love to be more part of that and connected to it, so and support
Cheaper
it.
option too, eh? Yeah, thanks.
Okay, Siggy.
Because we're volunteer, you can
Thank
pay
you.
us.
Can we just keep the questions short and precise, and the answers, please? Or we're not going to get through everybody.
Okay, just a quick one. Would you like, especially about the waste minimisation, we are supposed to be the leaders in council. Would you like to be the watchdogs, that we actually do the stuff we say we do and we don't do?
We are already.
Well, just be a bit louder.
Councillor Dave.
Thanks, Tanya. You talked about the biking plan, and our move at the moment is to try and say cycling as part of our overall Transport Access Hamilton program, with a lot of links between cycling and walking, cycling and public transport. Do you support that more holistic transport approach, or just a separate cycling plan by itself?
I think it can get a wee bit forgotten if you don't concentrate on cycling, but I'm really pleased with the biking plan that you've got in place. I just want to bring, as I said, I think we need to bring that school link earlier.
Deputy Mayor, Squishy.
When the council rolls out its new 2020 refuge rubbish collection contract, would you see your organisation working and advising council as part of that education? Because that's going to be a massive transformation.
Yeah, and that's really our concern, is that for that to work really well, there does need to be some investment in education. And we understand at the moment that would need to, as it stands, come out of the waste levy funding that you get. So it would be really good to have part funding from rates to contribute towards that necessary education, and we would definitely be keen to be part of that.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. So the next presenter is Anna Casey Cox. Yeah, I was keeping you there, so you're doing your individual submission now. You have 4 minutes. And unless the three of you want to join forces and do it together. No. No, I think this far away on your own, Anna.
Okay, I'm just getting my page.
That's all right. The clock won't start till you're organised.
So I'm now speaking as a mother more than anything else, living in Kirikiriroa, and I guess one of the aspects of the life in the city, in contrast to my own childhood, which was growing up in a rural community, is access to nature. So I'd love to see gullies to be our children's playgrounds, the places where they can go to explore and wonder. And we know that there's some issues in our schools now with children with a variety of different health concerns, time in nature has been shown to have a real dramatic effect on our children's well-being. There's a term called nature deficit disorder, so I encourage you to have a look at that. And there's been some work around showing that, you know, the time that children spend in nature can actually be really so beneficial to their well-being. And that's why I'm really passionate about investment in our gully systems and in our natural spaces like Waiwhakariki, because that's the opportunity it presents for our children. I'm obviously personally really interested in reducing poverty in our community. It's been quite distressing over the last 30 years, obviously, to see the development and increase in poverty in our community. That's an issue for our children as well. That's the kind of world they're growing up in. That's not the world I grew up in. I don't want my children to be growing up in a world where people are sleeping on the streets. It's not right from their perspective. And so I guess I'm trying to be a voice a little bit for my children today. I'd also like to see a lot more, I don't say a lot more, I'd like to see some investment in the telling of local history in our city. Captain Hamilton sitting out there by himself at the moment is not something that I appreciate. It's not telling the full story. So I'd really like to see some work done there. I don't support the redevelopment of Garden Place as proposed, but I do support something to be done so that Captain Hamilton isn't standing there by himself as if he's the one, because he really wasn't. And the people of this land know the full story, and I'd like to see that given some attention. Instead of the proposed entry fee to Hamilton Gardens, I would support the implementation of parking charges instead, and I'd like to see council, to fund also the restoration of the lake more fully, because that can be an awesome swimming place for our children. Again, going back to that, just wanting to think about children as central to this 10-year plan. Kia ora. Last one, that's it. Sorry for taking up time.
Councillor Gary.
Thank you. Thanks, Anna. Hey, you spoke on your first thing you spoke about was nature. I can't remember the term. Nature parks.
Nature deficit disorder.
No,
Is that what you mean?
No,
No.
not the disease.
Not the disease.
The answer.
Nature playgrounds.
Is that what it was? Sorry,
Yes.
I put down nature parks. But you realise that we're spending quite a bit of money on destination parks and things like that. Clearly, as we all know, as you talk about poverty, rates are going up significantly. Where do we rank your nature parks, nature playgrounds versus destination playgrounds? Because we have to make choices. We can't have everything, obviously.
Yeah, I understand that. What I don't support is the Central City Park, and I don't support the development of Garden Place. So those two projects could go towards gully restoration.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Martin.
Thank you for your observation around our history, which is obviously many, many hundreds of years old in terms of human habitation. The question asked, given your interaction with central government and the change of legislation to bring the social and environmental well-beings back, do you see a potential for your organisation to lobby government around the issue of revenue sharing? Because as you know, we are terribly constrained to fund a lot of projects, even social projects, from basically a property tax base, whereas we don't even get GST back on rates.
Yeah, definitely more collaboration, if that's what you're asking, between central government and local government on these initiatives. Yeah, that would be something I definitely support.
What's your view on revenue sharing?
To be honest, I haven't considered it all that much. Yeah, thank you.
No, thanks, Anna.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anna.
Good, thank you.
Tanya Ashman.
Kia ora. I'm a commuting cyclist, and I want you to take a good long look at me, because we are very few in number, and yet I believe that we are one of the answers to Hamilton City's transport problems. So we can reduce traffic congestion. We are light on the road for road maintenance. We don't need parking buildings. It's very easy for us to park our bikes. We don't create pollution. We are healthy. In fact, in the biking plan here, it says that a person who rides to work every day reduces their risk of death from all other causes by 30%. I'm not sure whether they've included the risk of being hit by a Hamilton cyclist, though. So I want biking to be a normal part of day-to-day life for Hamiltonians, and this is also stated in the Hamilton City Council biking plan. And I'm absolutely thrilled that Hamilton City Council wants that and has created some excellent plans to achieve this. Fantastic. But to normalise cycling, it needs to be a preferred choice for commuting. The ordinary getting from A to B, to get to work, the shop, to the friends down the road, into town, into the movies. To achieve this, I believe there's a sense of urgency. Since 1990, the numbers of school children in Hamilton cycling to school has decreased by 75%. Come on, we don't see kids cycling to school. I go into schools, they've got empty bike racks. This is a generation now entering adulthood without the experience of biking to school. Without this experience, they're less likely to choose cycling as their preferred form of transport to work, and they are less likely to encourage their future children to bike to school. And so the cycle of not cycling continues. We need to get school kids and families biking as soon as possible. And I'm wanting Hamilton City Council to implement the school link in the next 3 years. Why? It will create a safe corridor for young cyclists. As the 15 East Side schools are linked, safety is a huge issue, and we're always talking about that. That's why parents don't want their kids to cycle, and why sometimes I'm terrified. It will reduce car congestion during school drop-off times. We all benefit from this. We've all noticed how easy it is to get around Hamilton when it's the school holidays. Most importantly, it'll encourage families to rethink their commuting choices before we lose another generation to the car-only option. For our health and environments, let's be Hamilton, the city for cyclists.
Councillor Siggy.
Thank you so much for your submission. I just wanted to, no, don't worry. I just wanted to ask you, when the cycle helmet law came in, and I can't remember when it was, quite a number of years, there's a police report that overnight it dropped, the cyclists dropped by half. Now, how can we pick that up again, you know? And there have been questions about that. I know the safety has to come first, that cyclists are safe, you know, but I don't know, do you know anything about that, or you don't?
I have friends who don't like wearing cycle helmets. For me personally, that's not my biggest barrier to cycling. It is the sense of not feeling safe on the roads, right. And I like to cycle separate from the traffic, if possible.
But there could be different things that keep people away from cycling. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Ross Miller.
Do you remember that report, Leo? It was in the listeners.
Welcome, Ross. You have 4 minutes to speak. The clock's in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, and that includes questions. And great. Welcome. Thank you for coming today.
Kia ora, thank you, and I'll get right into it. This submission is philosophical and, by admission, comical, but it's on a matter topical. Bicycle. Bicycle. Loudly, to the tune by Queen. It gives exercise most physical and impacts budgets minimal, but we could end up in the hospital. Bicycle, bicycle. Sadly struck by cars is what I mean. I could get all hysterical about the state of traffic, all those cars and trucks that cut me off my bicycle, bicycle. Yeah, we could be smashed to smithereens. With the advent of electrical, bicycle economical, not to mention environmental, bicycle, bicycle, we're decongesting all our streets. What I hope I've chronicled, besides some thoughts upon the bicycle, is my effort to congratulate you all for considering the bicycle. Bicycle. It's a wonderful machine. I really do want to congratulate you for giving so much consideration to cycling in your 10-year plan. Hamilton is flat, and you can do this. We can do this. There are lots of benefits. It's economical. It gets physical exercise without great expense. It's probably most of the physical exercise I get. And that's without great expense to either the environment or our pockets. I regularly bike to the DHB where I sometimes work. It takes me 25 minutes on the bicycle during rush hour traffic. I don't have to work up a great sweat. If I bike by car, it takes me 25 minutes to get to the DHB because of the traffic. It takes me a further 10 minutes to find a car park in the DHB's car park, and then I have to walk at least 5 minutes, probably in the rain, to the place where I work from. There are safety issues. In my regular biking to work, I go along Mill Street, and there's a left-hand turn which lots of traffic takes onto Tristram Street. I indicate to turn right when I want to go straight ahead. I've been cut off numerous times on that small thing, probably 6 or 7 times in the last year or so. I've noticed that during peak traffic time, the amount of traffic that is queued up and that I overtake gets less. It's because school parents are dropping off kids by car. And I'd recommend that you put that effort into those cycle lane for school students. I think there's a caution, and I think cycles will become more and more popular with the advent of the electrical bicycles, and I think the time to address these matters is now, and I congratulate you that you are starting to do this, and please give more effort to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ross, for your presentation. There are no questions. No, thank you.
Excellent.
Margaret Hinshaw.
Well, I'm on a slightly different slant. I'm more interested in the cultural side of our city and the funding of that, and my particular interest is in libraries. I think they are an incredibly important and valuable community resource, and that I am involved with the Chartwell Library. I attend 2 groups of book chats there, plus a writing group. And there's an awful lot of other things that go on there as well. What I have become aware of is that people moving into the area, or people whose lives have changed for a variety of reasons, either they have moved to the area, or they have become new parents and for the first time at home with young children, or they have retired, or their lifestyle has changed, and they're looking to get involved with other people, and they don't know how, and they don't know where to go, and that information is not available. Their first point of contact is the library, because they see that as a place where it's a community resource. And I've been really interested in how, once they come to something at the library and they get involved, their lives expand and are enriched. One of the things that I am very aware of is that over my lifetime, I have been involved in all sorts of things in all parts of the country. I've been a university student 4 times. 2 of those qualifications no longer exist, and 1 doesn't exist in the format that I originally took. So just being qualified doesn't actually help. The thing that has got me through tough times in my life have been the cultural facilities. Books, music, theatre, the arts in general. I'm not a musician. I'm not a writer. I'm not any good at any of those things, but they have enriched my life. And I think it's really important because the financial things, the things we train to do, they change, they evolve, they don't exist any longer. But the cultural side of our lives can, they enrich, they enhance, and they broaden people's lives in a way that it's not possible for the day-to-day jobs, the way we earn money. And I think that those things are really important to us. And I think that being able to... One of the things that I've lived now in Hamilton for over 40 years, which is more than half my life. And when I came here, one of the comments was, it was a cow town that got a bit bigger than it should have. And I like to think we've gone past that, but sometimes I despair and think, well, have we really? And sometimes I think we just need that investment in the cultural side of our city to, because other things disappear, but that actually keeps us going. Thank you.
Right, thanks very much for your presentation. John Dobson. Hi John, welcome. John's here presenting for the Hamilton Gardens Development Trust. You have 9 minutes. The clock's on the bottom right-hand corner of the electronic screen. So
I've already used 1 second, so I better get on.
Okay, welcome John. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Mayor Andrew and elected members, thank you for the opportunity to speak to our submission this morning. I represent the Hamilton Gardens Development Trust. My fellow trustees are John Tanner, Glenn Holmes, Leonard Gardner, Virginia Graham, Louise Dobson and the Honourable Simon Upton. Both Virginia and Glenn are here today. We've been working in partnership with Council for about 10 years, helping to fund the development of the gardens, and a lot has happened in that 10-year period. We are passionate about the gardens and a strong supporter of Dr. Sergel. Without him and his inspirational vision, this wonderful regional asset would not exist, arguably. And of course, we must applaud past councillors who have continued to support and fund the development of the gardens. I'd like to take a couple of minutes just to give you a high-level overview of our submission, which I hope you've all had the chance to read. And then we can have some questions and answers, hopefully. There is no doubt that we have a wonderful asset. I had the pleasure recently to meet with a visiting expert, or world expert, on Japanese gardens. And I was blown away when she said, in her view, our Japanese garden is the best in the world. Now, she's Japanese, and she said it's better than some of the formal Japanese gardens in Japan. What we have is great, but it could clearly be better. It could be amazing. We've always understood that there are other garden concepts in Dr. Sergel's head. He's always coming up with visionary ideas. Very expensive man to keep, I might add. We were blown away, though, when he presented the long-term plan for the Hamilton Gardens, and I hope you've all had a chance to read that. It was presented at a meeting in this building last August. The plan provides for a further 17 themed gardens, and if associated infrastructure will complete the development on the site and make Hamilton Gardens truly a world-leading attraction. And I'm not the only one who thinks so. Professor Benfield, a recognised expert in garden tourism, said the concept is by far the most exciting I've ever seen in my 20 years career as a researcher in the field of garden tourism. Hamilton could join the ranks of the 5 destination gardens. This is because the vision, as stated, is indeed unique in the world, and that's important. If we continue the development at the pace proposed in the draft plan, the gardens will take 40 years to complete. Despite the advances of medical science, there will be not many of us left to see them completed, certainly amongst the group around this table. They can be physically completed within the 10-year plan horizon. So why are we only planning to complete 3? I guess it's the same old problems, funding, pressure on debt, and rates increases. And I commiserate with Council. You have a very, very difficult job balancing the books with all these competing demands. But I think we need to take a more holistic view in the wider sense and make the decision taking into account the wider city and regional benefits which do not show on the city balance sheet. Because if we confine our thinking to the constraints of the city balance sheet, we will miss this opportunity. You've all seen the Horworth HTL modelling of economic benefit. It's just a no-brainer. There will also be cost savings from planning and constructing a much larger project in a shorter time, rather than spreading it over 40 years. Our trust believes that the community can play a stronger role to make the completion of the gardens a reality within the 10-year planning horizon at a projected cost of $25 million. Now, it sounds a lot, but that investment of $25 million is going to reap great economic benefits to the city in particular. We'd like to pursue a more commercial governance structure, similar to what has been discussed for the theatre. I've observed over the last 10 years presenting to Council a lot of debate around charging, and I think it's distracted us from the bigger picture. We really need to get on with the development and it'll pay for itself. We support the continuation of the targeted rate, which will raise 5.7 over the 10 years, 5.7 million. We request that Council, or in particular the other TLAs in the region, front up with a further 4.3 million, and our trust will raise the balance of 15 million. And I have a quiet degree of confidence that this can be easily achieved. So in our view, the plan should include provision for the complete development in accordance with this Hamilton Gardens long-term plan, with the Hamilton Gardens Development Trust or a new trust to raise 15 million contribution from the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jeff.
Thank you, Mayor Andrew. Thank you, John. Just in terms of the logistics of what you're proposing there, my understanding has been that we've actually struggled to keep up with the pace of construction as it is in the last few years in terms of the constructing the gardens as we are. Could you even complete that number of gardens in the next 10 years anyway? Because, I mean, we haven't shown that so far we haven't been able to keep up with it, which is partly the reason that I was quite keen for us to slow it down a little bit, apart from the financial side.
The only garden that's posed any construction challenges has been the Sorellis garden, because it involves some very unique technology that is not plants. There is no reason why we cannot complete the 17 gardens and complete the development in 10 years. I've done a bit of research on that already. The major problem in the past has been drip feeding of funds. Okay, so it has been Peter has got the ideas, he's got the ability, the team at the gardens are fantastic. If the funds are there, they believe they can do it.
Okay. Can I ask another one? Or?
25 million isn't a big project in the wider sense of what Council's involved in terms of infrastructure.
Okay. Can I just say, I mean, you understand the financial situation we're in with the proposals for 2 9.5% rate rises, and there's a host of other things that we're being asked to put up.
Yep, I understand that.
And in the light of that, you still feel that 5.7 million isn't enough?
I believe that we need to complete it because the economic benefits speak for themselves. That is why our trust is going to take a leadership role. We've already talked to a number of other funders in the community, and we're going to raise the bulk of the amount, so it'll happen. Thank you.
Councillor Ryan.
Thanks, Mayor Andrew. With regard to commercialising your trust entity structure around it, what are the challenges for you doing that? Can you not, because it sounds like you've got some pretty key people around the trust now, can you not sort of evolve that into the governance structure you're looking to do?
Yeah, we can, but it's going to take a lot of energy, and we need to make sure we have the right leadership going forward. The structure is less important than the people that are behind it. I've been very impressed with the people behind the theatre proposal and what's happening there and Momentum's role, and I think we can sort of tag along with that and create something quite unique in this region.
And you feel like the trust doesn't serve that purpose?
Oh yeah, the trust can, but I think we're going to need a lot of energy and a lot of people, and we'll be looking wider than our existing trustees.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Gary.
And thanks, John, for your work. You put it down there. I know you get paid well for that.
Fantastic. I get a great kick out of it. I was down there on the weekend with my grandson in that playground and got forced to go down the worm twice, but don't tell Peter. It's an amazing attraction. The people were all over the place.
All right, I was just trying to get back to the point of charging. We've had a number of people coming in and say, don't charge, don't charge, don't charge. Yet we're constantly being told, and you've reiterated, although we did have one person who had a contrary view yesterday, but you've reiterated it's the best in the world, blah, blah, blah. Why on earth, if it's the best in the world, can't we charge for it?
Yeah, interesting.
There's a huge contradiction going on there. And someone's telling a fib.
Yeah,
somewhere it's got wrong.
I understand. My trust want to look at the big picture rather than the small picture. I see charging as a distraction. In my involvement with this trust, there's been 2 reports by the same consultant that have conflicting advice. I've even offered for PwC to actually do a peer review of that for free. It hasn't been taken up. I think we just need to step back. I think charging is going to happen. It's a matter of timing, and it's a matter of making it in a commercial type of way. And completion of a large number of gardens will make it a lot easier. You know, all the international guests I have coming to Hamilton, we debate that, and they all say, why aren't you charging? I say to them, well, you can make a donation. Did you make one?
The longer we don't charge for it, of course, the harder it gets.
Arguably, but look, let's step back, take the politics out of the decision, and let an entity
it's not
that's...
politics.
Well, it is politics. It's the hottest issue that I've seen around this council in my submissions for the last 7 years.
So what was the answer, John?
The answer is let's delay it.
No, what was the answer to the question you asked the international tourists?
The answer is, why don't I put a challenge back to them? No, we don't charge. You say you're happy to charge, so why don't you give a donation?
And what was their answer?
Oh, embarrassment.
Thank you.
Well, that is a challenge. And,
Councillor,
yes, it is. Yeah.
Councillor Dave, last question.
Thanks. Look, like the idea, and when you talked about it having regional benefit and the surrounding TLAs being incorporated into the sort of funding vision package there.
I like a challenge, Dave.
Yeah, so that's good because it is a challenge. I mean, have you been spreading this idea outside past Hamilton City Council, or do you see us needing to knock us off first before you go wider?
Well, I think the Hamilton City Council is a very important part of the puzzle, and we're not going to go and do anything without partnering with you. That's the way it's happened. It's been very successful. But I think that the region does benefit. You know, there's 1.2 million visitors to this particular attraction. There will be a lot more in future. We need to capture those people longer in the city so they spend a couple of nights or a night, and by completing the gardens you'll make that happen. At the moment you can go around the gardens, the themed gardens, in about 5 hours, so you don't have to stay. So the region is going to benefit.
And you'd join us in going out to the wider region?
Yeah, I think so. The regional council itself must be the first port of call.
Thanks, John.
Thank you for your presentation, John. And thank you for what you do for the city as well. Keith and Jenny Peterson.
This submission is under Jeanette Peterson. Jeanette Peterson? Peterson, sorry.
Thank you for coming. You have 4 minutes. The clock's on the bottom right-hand corner of the electronic screen, and that includes questions. So welcome, and start when you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor and councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. We represent the Perkins Family Farming Group that have farmed in Burbush Road area for about 100 years. The farm is currently in multiple titles and encompasses about 100 hectares. The property forms a large part of Charles Marr's SHA application, which we support, and that we realise may or may not go ahead and be the future. So, because of that, we are primarily concerned with the current situation, which was outlined in our written submission. We've had time in the last few days to view submissions made by other members of the public. we actually intended to elaborate on the rates issue, but can see that that has already been extensively discussed and Council will be well aware of the public's opinion. So rather than taking up time with this issue, we think it's more appropriate to discuss our individual situation, perhaps with Council staff at a later date. Our other concern, however, is the future housing development in the city, and my husband Keith is going to elaborate on that.
Thank you. Thank you, Edward. I was going to talk about something completely different prior to me starting to mow the lawns yesterday, and I was going around and I thought, well, hang on, we're going down the same old track, and we've had a bit of time, just Jenny and I, we sort of muck around, do nothing much, and seeing all these submissions, and I thought, hey, why be negative about the whole thing if we can't make a suggestion that might be valid? I think I'm of the old school, and I thought that housing development followed a set path, a set model that we've all been following, and we've seen it develop through Dinsdale and Rototuna and Flagstaff and the like. Next, Peacocks, Rotokauri, etc. So I'm aware of what the current situation is, but I think there's a solution to it, and it never dawned on me, and when I first saw it I was very cynical, and that's the SHA mechanism, which in my opinion should be expanded and used in total. Why does the Council lead the development of housing? They incur all the upfront costs, they take on large amounts of debt to enable developers to follow and make substantial profits. Here's an example. The current council rezones your land, they install all the infrastructure to the landowner's boundary, etc., and the landowner is effectively won lotto. They then apply for a resource consent. They get a development plan. They get a resource consent. They go and get their costings done. They go along to their bank. They pre-sell most of the sections, and then they drip feed. They do the development, and then they drip feed them on the market. Primarily, that they're to make a profit, and they will sell the sections at their price. The landowner wants to maximise their return. They only have a limited amount of land and they want to maximise that return. They're not interested in parks, schools, cycleways or drainage swales. They will develop to a generic plan of tight cul-de-sacs and poorly designed neighbourhoods. The price points will all be the same and they will control the process through building covenants. They effectively have a monopoly at the council's expense. The SHA mechanism is the opposite. It is developer-led, not council-led. The upfront development costs under the SHA mechanism are funded by the developer. They incur the debt, take the risk, and the pressure is on the developer to perform and meet the market. Council becomes the moderator in the system, providing the checks and balances, ensuring that the development follows the structure plan, and there are sufficient facilities to create communities, not neighbourhoods of generic one-price properties. The current model of development doesn't work. Nobody wants to provide the affordable house or the small units for downsizing families. Innovative ideas will eventuate and developers will modify their thoughts to development. The question that council should ask itself is, what is the cost to council per housing unit or section in the proposed SHAs, and then compare that to the cost and the upfront debt and risk of the current model. One thing is guaranteed, if council follows the same model that became Rototuna, you'll get exactly the same result and you'll be in the same, if not worse, situation in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Yep, good as gold.
No. Rowena Callio, sorry. Rowena, I apologise, I did actually miss you on the list, so I'm very sorry about that. I've kept you waiting for far too long.
apologies because I have to leave now to present the council submission at the Waikato District Council in Ngarawahia, so I'll be away for about an hour and a half. Just put my apology in.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Dove. So you have 4 minutes to present.
Right,
The time's
okay.
in the bottom right-hand corner, and thank you for coming.
Okay, thank you. CEO, Mayor, councillors. I'm only going to focus on one area this morning, and that's the finances. And I'm concerned that the true state of the council finances is actually not known. There's actually been disagreement within council staff as to what they are. So I'll get right into it. Expenses. With a CEO getting more money than the President of the United States, he gets $400,000, and other heads of state. He has a population of 350 million odd. I believe this is totally unrealistic, and expecting ratepayers to front up with an exorbitant increase in rates in a low-wage economy, I just don't think it's on. What percentage of income from rates goes to salaries of staff, consultants, contractors, instead of core services? I mean, can we even afford the council? So, on top of that, with such a salary, I would expect a level of competency above and beyond what is actually being asked for, with consultancy payments being in the range of $3 million, expected to go to $8 million. On top of that, with 1,200 odd staff in Hamilton for less than 200,000 people, it appears that the primary goal within some elements of council has become securing its future instead of focusing on the essential services needed and expecting ratepayers to pay for it. Expensive projects such as the River Plan, a new hotel, new theatre, when the old one would suffice for logical reasons, such as cost and parking, coupled with mistakes such as the dangerous Queen Ave Killarney Road disaster and the now famous Dinsdale roundabout, all this is not acceptable. Waste and excess needs to be microscopically examined. The current costing formula needs to be tossed out. Contract details should be transparent with numbers, names, start and finish dates, exact dollar amount, how it was awarded by tender or direct appointment. For a duty to cost $550,000, give it to a retiree who he'd be delighted to do it. Put his abilities and expertise to such a project. All these things are costing millions, $500,000 for that. So it's like, my pet peeve is the roading contractor. The roading contractor expenses especially. It's my pet peeve. Cones left all over the city, no one in sight, taking up parking that we actually don't have, no workmen, redoing areas again that have just been completed. I mean, is their work audited at all? How can these people do all this? It's just like, it just boggles the mind. I find it very disturbing that these wants, you know, the council wants, at the expense of essentials, should even be entertained. It's as if the council is treating the rates monies like lotto. It wants the winnings to fund their favourite projects, but there's a major difference. It's not their money. It's not your money. They haven't worked for it. People haven't worked for this. It's ratepayers' money, which is going to put a lot of people in positions of extreme hardship in more ways than one. Like I rent, for instance. The owner of my property might decide that it's not worth it to keep this. He's got maintenance of the house. He's got, and then with this new rates demand, and this is going to be going on. It's already going on. So that means people have to look for more accommodation. It's just like crazy. So as rates are a demand for monies, with consequences if not obeyed, I would even consider this rate demand as a type of bullying. You know, it's just like, it's just not on. I believe that the long-term plan needs to go back to the drawing board, and the 3.8% should be honoured. Borrowing for everyday costs means that you have excessive operating costs, and it's contradictory to want all these non-essential projects. You know, that's it. You know, I've run a business, a successful business. My overheads, if I had overheads like this, I would have been out of business and bankrupt in a matter of months. So it's just, this has got to be looked at from a different perspective. Anyway, that's all I've got to say.
Thank you for your presentation. No, we're out of time, so. Is it Sean Wilson? Sean? Sorry, Sean. Yes, anywhere, and you don't have to touch anything, it'll come on itself once you start talking. I am just going to put, sure. Yep. Do you control that? Staff behind you. So, Sean, you have 4 minutes. The clock's on the bottom right-hand corner of the electronic board. The clock won't start until you're organised and ready. And welcome. Thank you for coming. No, you don't have to touch anything. Just start talking. It'll come on. Just write them.
Okay, I'm ready to start. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present to you this morning. I actually submitted my own written submission to the 10-year plan. My first point, which is a big priority for me, is increasing the road safety that is going on in the northeast of Hamilton as the city's pushing. It's actually busting its boundaries. It's not up to the boundaries, it's busting out. So I live in that area. I'm on these roads every day. So you have to excuse me now, I'm going to speed read a little bit. So I'm representing myself and my young children, but also the surrounding communities and families of Flagstaff North and into the Horsham Downs area, who are becoming increasingly concerned about the ability to live and move around these areas safely, to access schooling and then travel onwards to work or leisure. It seems many of us are approaching council, but our genuine concerns are not being heard. I live on K Road West, which was a gnarly old rural road that used to carry a few Fonterra trucks and farm vehicles, with a smattering of residents' vehicles, plus those travelling east from River Road. It's an 80k road with blind humps and bends, and it's very skinny. Before any development on the city side, it was already a very tricky road to negotiate. As the pressure has come on for Hamilton City to push out to its boundary at K Road with the development of housing, the road is simply not coping and was never built for the increased volumes of traffic, especially not the high volumes of double trucks and trailers flying along up and down to the quarry. The safety issues we're experiencing and will continue to experience in the area would not arise had the plan been for access onto K Road via the Bourman Road extension only. However, Haripuki Drive is leading into housing, plus connecting to a substantial residential retail development, a new primary school for 600 students, a retirement complex, and the Haripuki Reserve, which will be home to the new destination playground. Because of this, plus intensive development of higher density housing at Tennealle Street, plus alternative access to the expressway via Osborne Road, plus residential and commercial development being allowed onto K Road West itself, plus the huge zone that is Road to Senior High School, residents know that taking the Bourman Road extension from K Road will not be chosen by many as the preferred option for moving around the area, especially around peak times. In the community on a daily basis, we see children struggling to walk along these routes to get to school, cycling to school, leisure cyclists, and as the new residents move in, we see more and more people walking, taking their dog for a walk or going for a run. This will worsen along K Road in particular, with residential subdivisions now having direct access onto K Road, plus the kindergarten at 100 K Road for 120 infants, toddlers and preschoolers, plus staff, contractors and other visitors coming and going, most of whom will have to access that business by car. It must be noted that in order to accommodate this, Hamilton City Council has allowed the metalling over of grassed berms on the Waikato district side of K Road, which connect myself and my neighbours' properties on both sides of rural driveways, thus disconnecting us. The safe road approach looks beyond asphalt and painted lines excuse me, and recognises that the human being is fallible, will make mistakes and looks to have a roading system in place that provides a cushion around the vulnerable human when such events occur. Hamilton City Council adopted its Vision Zero strategy in 2017 with the aim of eliminating road deaths by 2027. It is vital that as part of this strategy, Council recognises that it is sending its citizens across formal boundary lines as it pushes out. If we applied workplace health and safety practices and policies to our roading infrastructure, we would have the ability to report near misses and express concerns to our local authorities, who would then be legally bound to respond and to put mitigation measures in place to prevent harm. On the 12th of April, a fatality occurred on River Road North, not far from the intersection with K Road. The impact of this event was very deeply felt within our community. It had occurred at peak work, commute and school drop-off time, and I alone received message after message on my phone to ask if I was okay. For the remainder of the day, we were left reeling and wondering if this was a school family or a neighbour. I do have a lot more to say, and I know I'm going over the time, but do apologise. I would like to, what I want to really get out of today, please, in terms of long-term plan deliberations, is coming to Hamilton City Council as the council that's doing the development work that's causing the increase in traffic, to work very closely as a representative of the community, I guess, to work with the council very closely to reduce speed limits and put other road safety measures in place to protect that growing community that's out there. As a matter of priority, a temporary 50 kilometres per hour limit along K Road West, whilst additional HGVs are travelling backwards and forwards to the Resolution Drive extension site. This is a real priority. This was requested last year. Please make this happen. We're genuinely scared, Mayor King, councillors and CEO Briggs and councillors and staff, and we do not want another nasty event in our locale. Please prioritise this in your 10-year plan discussions. We do not want to be told no in terms of council committing funds while spending millions of dollars on things like new theatres while life is in danger on our roads. Many thanks.
Thank you, Sian. I'll just take two very quick questions. First from Councillor James.
And you're a passionate person, and I've enjoyed working with you on this. Look, if council could do something immediately on K Road to reduce your concerns and improve residents' lives, what would that be?
Right now, if you could all turn up tomorrow with temporary 50 km per hour speed limit signs and dot them all along K Road, that would be amazing. Obviously, signs are one thing, adherence to them is something completely different, but at least if the signs are there and they're clear and they're easily visible, at least we can actually maybe go to the police and ask them, can you do some rounds? Can locals take photos if we see the trucks speeding along and things like that? The number of trucks going up there mixed in with school traffic is it's a huge, huge concern. And I realise that construction will cease at some point, but we do need that protection in the short term.
I've got some news from Chris Allen. He had to leave to the District Council, a meeting with Dave. He has just messaged me saying that part of the HCC submission to the District Council today is to follow certain reduced speeds on that section of road. So that's what they're producing today. So you may have an answer, hopefully.
Yep. And so the other thing I just wanted to ask, please, is may I please join your agenda for the Growth and Infrastructure meeting on the 29th of May? I'd like to go into this in quite a bit more detail with you, if that's okay.
If you do come to that, you get 3 minutes before the meeting, and it is very strictly timed.
Sure.
So you need to actually get your main points down to less than 3 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so, and you need to book in with Democracy in advance, but I'll get Democracy to touch base with you as you leave.
Brilliant.
I'll also...
Yeah, so I can put a full written submission in as well to that committee.
We can talk to you about that, Sian. Yeah. So if you just leave your details with Claire, we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, very short, please.
Very short. Thank you very much for your very nice, respectful submission, acknowledging, it was excellent. And your last paragraph is certainly noted. And I guess the quick question is, you obviously will support better revenue sharing with central government in terms of, we are so limited around the property tax versus other ways in which government needs to work with us to spread the burden.
Yeah, I think I did have a bit of a glib conversation over email with Chris Allen about the savings that have been made on the expressway build, and I said, can we not claw some of that in and do some of the work, because the expressway is bringing more into the area too, to connect onto it. So let's get some more central government funding in there too.
Thank you, Sian, for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Nikki Edwards. So, Nikki, you have 4 minutes. The clock's on the bottom right of the electronic board. I'm sorry you've had to wait so long. And to start when you're ready, thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. We really appreciate the chance to speak today. I'm here with one of my swimming friends called Story. My submission relates to the proposal to increase pool entry fees, and I appreciate that this is a very small decision that the council's making in terms of the long-term plan, but it has some quite big impacts for us. It will result in a 55% increase in the cost of us for swimming. I'm a competitive triathlete, and I've been swimming at Gallagher's since 2007. Cor's been swimming there since it opened in 1997, and before that, Waterworld. We swim 3 to 4 times a week with a group of 6 to 10 friends. We really like swimming there, and we've worked really hard to keep our group there. At present, we all swim with a 30 swim concession card, so the cost for us is $4.33 per swim. As a result of the proposed changes to the fees, Council is doing away with the 30 swim concession, and we will have to buy a 10 swim concession card, so the cost for us will be $6.70 per swim. This is about an extra cost for us of about $370 a year. Many of my friends were not aware of the proposal to increase the fees, and many of them have not made a submission. I've told them that I'm coming here today to present. One of my key concerns is that Fastlane, a private pool, will now be cheaper to swim at than Gallagher's, and I'm really concerned that many of my friends are likely to move there. I don't want to change pools because I really like the community environment at Gallagher's, and I want to support my local pool. However, economically, it will be a lot cheaper for us to swim at Fastlane. It's going to be about $270 cheaper a year for us, and the reality is that I'll end up swimming where my friends swim. I am concerned as a ratepayer that I'm contributing towards the pools, yet they will be more expensive to swim at than other ratepayer pools. I'm also concerned that swimmers at Gallagher's seem to be subsidising the cost of upgrades for works at Waterworld, and these are services that we will never use. So the decision that I seek is that Council reinstates the 30 swim concession card at a rate of $130. That will encourage those people who've been loyal to the pools and to keep swimming there. But I do suggest that if there is a need to increase the price of that I ask that any increase is modest and reasonable. That's what I wanted to say, and just that thank you for this opportunity, because I know it is such a small issue with what you're grappling with.
Thank you. Councillor Gary.
Just to clarify or just confirm, a council-owned pool is now going to be dearer than Fastlane, which covers all its own costs by its own money.
Yes, that's correct. So I understand the 10 swim concession card, for example, is $55, whereas at Gallagher's it will be $67.
Oh, okay.
And you can also at Fastlane get a weekly membership which you can cancel at any time, and the cost of that was about $4.97. Would effectively be $4.97 for me if I was swimming there 3 times a week.
Okay. Thank you very much, Nicola.
Thank you.
Councillor Deputy Mayor Martin.
Just for a follow-up, and you're also saying that in fact the Hamilton will be dearer than those 3 other local authorities, Te Abutu and.
Yes, that's correct. So those were just the couple of pools that I had a look at online, and they were going to be significantly more expensive than other council-funded pools.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nikki. Thank you, Cor, for coming in to support.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Great. Thomas Bucher. Thank you, Thomas. You have 9 minutes. The clock is on the bottom right-hand corner of the electronic board, and I'll let you introduce yourself and your organisation.
Thank you, Your Worship, councillors. I try to cut a little bit off these 9 minutes. In 1995, I had a construction company in Auckland and employed 6 people. I paid them $20 per hour, which was way more than the average going rate. One day they asked me for a $2.50 increase, more than 10%. I had a reputation as outstanding workmanship, sharp in price, always finished in time. I didn't want to lose my team. So I said, you get your $2.50. What do I get? I want you to start at 7:20 you're on site, and by 7:30 the machines are going. Not 45 minutes lunch break, half an hour. Not packing up at 4:45, at 5 minutes to 5. You get something, I get something. When your chief executive asked for a $40,000 pay increase, if he's a good one, I would definitely say yes. But what was your side of the bargaining? Did you ask, for example, for a 4% reduction in running cost? You could have done so. Now coming back to the complaint which I have as president of the Netherville Retirement Village, the increase we have is in actual fact 31%. It says in the letter, your rates are going up 9% and 9.5% for the next 2 years and another 3.8%. But on the reserve side, for one of the people living in the village, it says your rates at present are $1,690 and will go up to $2,219, which is an increase of $529. 10% of $1,690 is $169. Easy to work out. 31%. A lot of those older people retired, worked on very low income and had to do their savings from it. It is very, very difficult for those people, and I have great concerns for them. If Mr. X wants to buy a section in a new subdivision, and by the way, it's impossible, you can't buy a section, we haven't got affordable housing, I'll come back to that later on. There is roading, there is sewer, there is stormwater, there's gas, there's power, there's street light, road marking signs, everything is in there. When Netherville was built, which is one of the unique retirement villages in New Zealand, it was not built with the purpose of making a lot of money, it was a responsibility for providing retirement housing for elderly people. Netherville paid for all those, their own streets, their own lighting, everything. We collect the rubbish in the village and put it at one central point which takes 5 minutes to pick it up. How about 104 wheelie bins along the road? It's impossible. We pay for the insurance, earthquake premium has gone up 40%. People pay through that. Surely on top of their rates, they pay also for the rates of all the common grounds, on which we have, my understanding, is a 50% rebate. But still, even that adds all up. The petrol tax, still around the corner. The new valuation, all coming up. Increases of the regional council. Surely you might say, but those people have the opportunity for a rates rebate. Yes, fair enough, and they should do. But last year I noticed that there were 3 people from the council interviewing those people and helped them and assisting them with the rates rebates. But it is for me unacceptable if there are 3 people sitting and people are lining up in a queue and they help them one by one. There is no privacy at all. It's just not good enough. I will definitely make sure as president that is never going to happen. The rates rebate application, yes, but not in a situation like that. It's not good enough. It is well known that 80% of elderly people in retirement villages are financially abused by either their own children. If they are not prepared to talk about it, how can you expect them to ask for a rate rebate? They're too ashamed. And I will stress and point it to them that they have to do it. But I'm limited. I can only tell them. But most likely they will not. I'm really worried about that. It's the aim of the government to have older people staying as long as possible in their own house. But if the rates are going up like that, is that the reality? I have concerns about that. We try to be environmental friendly, and we try to tell people to put solar panels on. Have they got the finance for it? Not when the rates are going up 31%. Just a quick look on Mr. X, who could not buy a section, and I'll tell you why. The subdivisions are all done by developers, and they are interested in making money. I've been in the industry for at least 60 years. From designing to the architect, I'm the engineer, I'm the builder, I'm the drain layer, I do everything. You cannot buy a section because they all go to franchise holders, and they buy 10 at the same time and pay the price for one. If your son or daughter ever wants to buy a house, and his brother is a tiler, and his other brother is an electrician and whatever, they will never get a hand on that because the developer or the franchise holder will say, no, I sell you the whole package. Is that fair? They could save a fortune. Affordable housing, it will never happening. Medium density housing, I get all the information from the government from everywhere and do a lot of research. I love it, it's my hobby, it's my enjoyment. Medium density housing, government has not done proper research on fire risk, it's phenomenal. On noise control, you sit in one flat and you can hear the TV channel in the other one. We haven't done it yet, it's all a dream. It's very complicated, it's difficult. One thing I could suggest to the council, if people reply for resource consent for subdivision, how about if we put one clause in? You put 50% of the sections on the open market and you sell 50% to the franchise holders. And you can only buy a section by paying the full price, not by 10%, because they paid 10 sections, pay for one. On the builder's terms, you pay 10% deposit and you sit on it. You want to do something on affordable housing? That would be the way to go. Thank you for your time.
Councillor Siggy.
Thank you so much, Thomas, for your awesome submission. I just have a question. You said, right at this, sort of in the middle there, you said 80% of people in retirement villages get financially abused by their children. What do you mean by that? How does that happen?
This is information what I received from the Minister of Seniors,
right,
which is in a pamphlet which is distributed in all the retirement villages.
Right.
That could, for example, mean that the children take care of the financial part of the parents, okay, and misuse it without informing them. And you have to understand that the age will go up. We have people, for example, the oldest one lives, to my knowledge, 95.
Right.
You know, so we have people like that. It's very, very difficult. Mm-hmm. But that's the reality. That's okay, information from the government we have.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Lovely.
Deputy Mayor Martin.
You quoted one that's 1690 is going up to 2219, is that right?
1690 to 2219. 1690, your rates, your current rate is 1690. If the proposal went ahead, your rates for the next 3 years from the 1st of July will be 2219.
So that's just so we've got to compare, that's $32.50 per week up to $42.67. That'd be right. It's $32 to $42 per week.
529.
Yeah. I'm just wanting to.
Yeah.
Is that an average? I'm just in near the village. Would that be a representative, good representation sample of, or is that the high end or low end? Is there?
No, the average size of the house is 120 square meters. So if look, for example, at the present rates. If an average house is 120 square meters, chuck another 20 square meters in for the driveway, etc., that is the area which people are owning. The rest is common ground.
No, sure.
So on that land value, they pay already
Right.
nearly $1,100 a square meter.
Okay,
And a brand new section in Flagstaff costs $840 a square meter on rates.
Okay.
So they're already way over the top.
That's good follow-up. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep.
Thank you for your presentation, Thomas.
You're welcome.
Sam Newton. So Sam, you have 9 minutes. The
Thanks very
clock's
much.
on the bottom right-hand corner. Thank you for coming. Start when you're ready.
Thank you for having me. I'm Sam Newton, the Advocacy Manager at the New Zealand Recreation Association. NZRA is the organisation responsible for providing leadership, advocacy and professional development opportunities for those involved in the broader recreation sector. NZRA's membership includes recreation policymakers, territorial local authorities, voluntary organisations, regional sports trusts, outdoor recreation businesses and others involved in the delivery of recreation in New Zealand. Our role is to champion high quality recreation for the benefit of New Zealand. We believe recreation is vital to New Zealand society. Recreation is not just about enjoyment, it's about healthy, engaged and stimulated and having fun and interacting with others. Recreation is a major contributor to the physical and mental health of individuals. Sport and active recreation contributes $4.9 billion or 2.3% to New Zealand's annual GDP and the sector employs more than 53,000 New Zealanders. Recreation is part of what it is to be a New Zealander. People define themselves and their communities through their recreation opportunities. Recreation fosters community cohesion and supports the integration of diverse ethnic and other social groups. Recreation research shows that recreation makes a significant contribution to social resilience. Physical inactivity is associated with loss of productivity, health costs, as well as associated costs such as pain and suffering. Healthier, happier individuals are more likely to do well in other areas of their life. A greater understanding of these benefits and their downstream impacts, along with awareness of how laws, regulation and government spending can influence recreation delivery, are key to ensuring that New Zealand's recreation opportunities remain among the world's best. NZRA acknowledges and thanks Hamilton City Council as the major provider of our city's sport and recreation facilities. By investing in recreation, Hamilton City Council does make a real difference. Council planning needs to adopt a long-term approach that takes into account factors such as urbanisation, population growth, an ageing population and the rise of tourism to ensure that recreation can continue to thrive amid change. Research has found that in areas of activity decline, government and community-led interventions help reverse the trend. With regard to specific proposals, NZRA supports the overarching desired outcome of a great river city and an embrace of Hamilton's natural environment. With regard to Challenge 3, improving Hamilton's transport system, NZRA supports a 10% increase in transport spending and a prioritisation of work on walking and cycling routes. Investment in active transport infrastructure achieves the dual symbiotic benefit of easing traffic congestion and making it easier for residents to integrate healthy recreational activities into their day-to-day lives. We advocate an acceleration of the biking plan and associated active transport initiatives. We note that in other cities, Christchurch being such an example, the number of cyclists on completed cycling routes has exceeded expectations, and we believe Hamilton City Council should be encouraged by that. Challenge 4, investing in community infrastructure. We support a different combination of projects. We do support the planned investment in the new indoor recreation facility in partnership with the university. We also support the development of 14 new or upgraded playgrounds over the 10-year span. We support the development of the Rototuna Community Hub, and we support the allocation of space for an aquatic facility and await with interest to see the result of the proposed PPP. We note with concern that the construction of a new basic skate park in a central location has not been included in the 10-year plan. We also note with concern that high priority drainage improvements on identified parks has not been included in the 10-year plan. Such drainage improvements would increase the hours of use of those parks and improve their quality. We also note with concern that aspects of the river plan have not been included. It is particularly disappointing to note that a project to enhance the swimmability of Wellington Street Beach has been omitted. Similarly, a pedestrian and cycle bridge connecting the eastern side with the city centre would have been well received. On a general level, NZRA encourages Hamilton City Council to be wary of recreational workforce shortages and capability gaps, which we're seeing all across the country. We encourage Hamilton City Council to ensure that there is sufficient operational resourcing and workforce development to effectively activate recreation spaces and places. We also encourage the Council to undertake playability benchmarking for its parks and pay particular heed to the detail of park maintenance contract specifications. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Mark, could you keep it very short? We're way over time.
We're actually under time, but...
We're 20 minutes over time. I've got people waiting.
So all right, second question for the day, Mayor Andrew. If you could elaborate, please, on the particular cycling projects that you are worried about being in year 7 and 8 that you'd like drawn forward.
I haven't got that detailed in front of me, but there was a schedule laid out, and I think that a good chunk is happening between 7 and 10, and we'd like to see an acceleration of that. And that was hinted at in the submission paper. So we're just a massive fan of active transport.
Yeah, got that, yeah.
And we're seeing great success where it's well planned and well conceived across the country. It's exceeding expectations, and cycling numbers are exceeding expectations. So we would advocate that you take on that NZTA central government subsidy and get stuck in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Sam. Marilyn Yeoman. Sorry, Sam, there were no questions. There was no one else waiting for questions. Was there? There was no one else on the list waiting for questions. Oh, sorry. Marilyn. So, thank you for coming, Marilyn. You have 4 minutes. Your time's on the bottom right-hand corner of the clock.
Thank you very much. And firstly, can I thank you all collectively for my recent civic award. Although I'm the past president of the Hamilton Gardens, I am now the convener of the volunteers and our role at the Information Centre. So I make this submission as an individual and not as the Friends of Hamilton Gardens. Hamilton Gardens is magnificent. It is the only internationally recognised top-rate tourist destination in Hamilton. Therefore, I cannot understand why Council fails to recognise this and is not ready to pour many more dollars into finishing not only the gardens in the enclosed area, but also the remaining proposed gardens that Peter Sergel has designed. Think of what that would do for the Council coffers. I am for the targeted rate. This continues the community feeling of owning the gardens. I am against the proposed entry fee. I do not feel we are ready for this yet. I would not argue with it if the infrastructure was in place. Please keep your free entry and let's greatly up the donations opportunities. I feel that the profits of charging are very questionable as per the Howarth report. I also feel that the gardens are in a public park and the land previously being taken from Maori. Incidentally, Hamilton is the only major city council that does not have a budget for Matariki, and this will be needed for the celebrations next year. It worries me what visitor numbers will be like when the city bypass is completed. So I think that rather than charging, we would be better off keeping the free entry and building up the publicity and the extent of the gardens, which will build its own momentum for the Hamilton economy. The public has poured enormous funds and support in money and kind for these gardens. Council expects us to continue in this vein. Will donors be so keen when they see that Council charges an entry fee? More people mean more visitors to the zoo and the museum and more people staying in Hamilton. Where is the entry money going? I personally feel that this is a no-brainer. And to Gary Mallett and the Finance Committee, I say as an accountant and a visionary, I cannot see. How can you not see that putting money into Hamilton Gardens will get you and the council the best return on any dollars spent? I do not support the Development Trust model of management for the gardens. And finally, whatever is decided, we will work positively with the council. We have refreshed the volunteers. You've seen a couple of them give submissions so far, many of whom now speak different languages. We are keen and able to cope with any changes, and we continue to enjoy a very positive relationship with the Hamilton Gardens Council staff. We wish this to continue. Thank you.
We'll take one question, so we've got time for, and I think it's fair we take it from Gary since he was referenced.
Thanks for the shout out. Yesterday we were advised that there are a number of buses coming to the gardens.
Yes.
I think it's Auckland through to the gardens, and they're basically stopping there for a toilet stop, and that's it. I think the numbers were 30–40% of the buses.
I think that's a bit of an over-exaggeration myself.
But it is happening.
Yes, it is happening with some, but the majority go through the gardens, even if it's for a whistle stop, And those people will go back and tell other people about our gardens and how wonderful they are.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Glenn Harris. I'm just going to squeeze in two more people who've been waiting before we stop for morning tea. So there'll be Glenn, and then there's the Hillcrest students who are all waiting outside, and then we'll stop for morning tea.
Glenn's submission is a rating submission, so you need to switch to your rating tab to see his submission.
Thank you, Glenn. You have 4 minutes.
Thank you.
And
I might have time allowed to refer to a couple of other minor points as well. But
sure.
Forgive me if the figures that I mentioned to you have been repeated and repeated and repeated, but if they are repeated and repeated, you should shut up and take notice of them, because repetition suggests that it's the tip of the iceberg thing. Most of the figures I'll use are those that apply to me as a property owner in New Borman Road, or the new end of Borman Road. The proposal I'm opposed to, but I don't have an alternate, because I'd like you to go back and have a rethink of how you're going to strike the rates for this year and the 9 years following. Proposal is that rates go up by 9.5%, the introduction of a uniform annual general charge of $500, and a move to fixed rates on the capital value. For me, that represents an increase in year one of 61%, not 9.5%, 61%. My rates are going from $2,331 to $3,759. That is a 61% increase. Not happy with that. There's a proposal to introduce 9.5% increase in year two, maintain the uniform annual charge, not forgetting, of course, that we need to factor in the new capital valuations that will apply from later this year. Years 3 to 10, 3.8% per annum, maintain uniform annual general charge, factor in 2 more capital valuation assessments. Okay, for me, at the end of 10 years, my rates will have gone up by $3,213. That's 138% on this year's rating value. I'll say that again, 138%, 13.8% per year, okay, which is not too far short of the single proposal of 16% that the Mayor had announced when I first moved to Hamilton last October. 13.8% a year. Not so bad in our household. We've got one fairly good income earner, myself and my mother-in-law, God help her, as superannuitants, but we also look after my brother-in-law who has cancer, and he is on a benefit. So we're fairly comfortable with the income stream that comes into our house. There's probably only 7 people sitting around this thing who are interested in what I've got to say, because I can only vote for 6 of you and the Mayor. So those from East Hamilton, yeah, listen up, please. I want to talk about the impact on the people of low income, and I've just said our household's not one of those. Around a third of your voters are aged 65 or over. Some of them are eligible for the rates rebate of $620 per annum, which is the maximum. All of them, however, are exposed to the $500 uniform annual charge, so you're wiping out just about their rebate. They're largely low incomes. New Zealand married superannuitants, for example, received a $16 a week increase, $8 each from 1st of April this year. That's $832 per annum. In my part of town, let's assume that their rate increase is going to go up by $1,000. You've wiped out their superannuation increase, and you've eroded further into the superannuation that they were already getting. That's not fair, okay? So Mayor King, Councillors Bunting, Casson, Mallet, Hamilton, Pascoe and Southgate, I'm one of your voters. I'm in an area of town that I think is going to be dramatically affected if you adopt Proposal 6, okay? I'm opposed to it. The one thing that I think contributes to the 61% increase that I've referred to is the move to capital value. From what I'm told when I rang the call centre here, moving from land value to capital value, the rate is going to be struck at the same rate that it was struck on land value. Okay? That's obscene. Okay? You've got to look at perhaps lowering the rate that you strike on capital value to be fair. Don't just carry that rate from land value to capital value. My property currently is valued at about $700,000. CV's probably going to take it to about $1 million. My rates are going to go up. I can afford it, many can't. Okay? I see I've just gone under my time. I just want to make brief mention. Please don't kick Citizens Advice Bureau out of the Victoria Street property. I volunteer there. I've seen some great things that they do. Don't change that. And please ask your officials to reconsider the plan not to have an exit off Resolution Drive onto K Road. Okay? I think that's a really dangerous option to route the traffic down Borman Road. Thank you for your time.
Could I just ask you, Lisa, to note that last... Did you get that? Could you repeat the Resolution Drive exit?
The Resolution Drive, I asked the officials to reconsider the proposal not to have an exit off Resolution Drive onto K Road heading west. Currently, there will be no off-ramp there. I think the purpose of that is to divert traffic down Borman Road, past 3 childcare centres and the new primary school that's being built there, rather than K Road, where there are no schools and limited residential accommodation.
Okay, Evelisa, I'll just get you to touch base during the break and just get context. Thank you. All right, thank you very much for your presentation. Okay, we'll stop now for morning tea. Can we make this a little bit shorter, guys? Just a cup of tea and bring it back, so maybe be back at 11:40 sharp. Thank you. high school students, so so you can start when you're ready. You have 9 minutes. Your time is on the board here, and that time includes questions. So you can all, or whoever's presenting can come up to the microphones here. You can bring up as many chairs as you like, or you can stand around the microphones, whatever you can make work. With some, yeah. Lovely. All right. Is there... Yes, you can. I'm just thinking it'd be a great photo if somebody, if there's anybody else here with you who would like to take a photo from around the back here, or wherever you like. That would be acceptable. So I'll let you start when you're ready. No, excuse me. If you just stand over in here. Okay. Okay, so you can start when you're ready.
Oh, is this on?
I don't know. Once you start talking, the microphone will switch on.
Okay, thanks. Dear Mayor Andrew King and the Chamber of Councillors, it's been an honour to speak here at Hamilton City Council. As we step in the door, we realise a sense of rituality and responsibility on the shoulder of those who've made themselves accountable for the people. We appreciate that. Yesterday, I was talking to my mom. I said, Mom, hey, if I tell you tomorrow I'll speak at Hamilton City Council, just like Bismarck with his great speech, not by speeches or the great question of the day be decided, but by action. And I'll bring revolutionary changes to the public policy. Would you be proud of me? And she said, sorry to let you down, son, but the government is firstly providing you free education. Secondly, they're not starving you to death. And thirdly, they're not hassling you in any way. Is it just typical of you teenagers having nothing else to do? In a survey by Ray Morgan about the biggest social issue in New Zealand, 40% of the vote went into economic issues, such as increase in the cost of living, low minimum wage, an increase in unaffordability of housing, and so on. The average disposable income of a New Zealander have increased by 68% since the first quarter of 1992. But paradoxically, according to the Reserve Bank of New Zealand, from 1992 first quarter to today, the inflation rate was 67%.
We can see from this that with a steep rates increase like what is being suggested, this may put forward problems for families. If people are already struggling to pay rates, perhaps due to high bills they already have to pay for things like electricity, then that would cause problems. Many New Zealanders are just having to live with their day-to-day costs and won't have much money, if any, set aside for increasing costs. Therefore, what may even seem to us as a small increase, it's far too much. For example, our teacher will have his rates increased by more than $1,000. His rates are potentially increasing from $1,700 to $3,300. For this, he also does not have access to HCC water or sewerage. And yes, some people are having their rates decreased, but for those who need to pay more and simply don't have the money to, their financial hardship would push them into selling their house, perhaps. A possible solution, however, would be increasing rates less steeply. Rates could increase 6.65% annually for the first 4 years, and then use the original increase of 3.8% for the next consecutive years. This is possible because it would mean that council would still receive the same amount of rates. However, they would receive the money more gradually, making sure that those who are struggling will not be as negatively impacted. It is not just those who struggle that will be helped by a less steep increase, it will also be the retired population. They have worked often all their lives for that money, but increasing rates means they may not have enough. They may even have to prioritise differently and even spend less money on healthcare. Another possible idea would be reviewing the way rates are calculated. The calculation of rates could be more based on income rather than property value, meaning that those who live in a house with a high value but struggle with money would not fall through the cracks.
One of the main issues we seem to be faced with is that some of the planned expansions and the projects are unnecessary. At this point in time, money needs to be spent on things that Hamilton really does need. This could be done by prioritising things like safety over infrastructure. However, many of the planned projects have a lot of potential in the future. Even just putting them aside until Hamilton has enough money to cover all the needs could work. Of course, maintenance of things like parks is really important. However, upgrading should be perhaps left until there is enough money to cover the more important things and any emergencies which may come up. Expanding and taking up new projects should be definitely in the conversation, but right now spending of rates should be need only.
while rates don't directly affect us now, they will later in our lives. When we hopefully own our own homes, we want Hamilton to have enough money for all the needs. We are the younger generation, and we can see how a rates increase like this one could have consequences for us.
Commuters, school and tertiary students, retirees, tourists and special event attendants, and people with disabilities rely on bus services. In the weekend or public holidays, many buses run hourly, starting their daily routine late and finish early, which cause inconvenience to passengers who do not have another reliable form of transport. We should spend our budget on providing the public transport that continues to meet people's needs currently and in the future. As a modern city, we should offer hospitality to people in Hamilton by improving the frequency of public transport services. Instead of upgrading quality of buses, people would prefer to add more fleets of buses, extend the route from Hamilton to other regions, or maybe establish bus-only lanes. It's not necessary to have phone chargers or high-quality seats on buses. Sometimes buses are empty on the off-peak period and extremely during after-school and work hours. More available buses could help the bus company to align the timetable during rush hour.
Spending money on unnecessary things may stress our generation when we get our home ownerships. Even though some development are important, but right now the job of Hamilton City Council is to run the city instead of making extra developments. We are going to spend money and construct the city to a better place. Why don't we just create a sustainable transport system and look after our environment? Good governance is not associated, and I quote from Kishore Mahbubani, he was Singapore's ambassador to UN for 10 years. Good governance is not associated with any single political system or ideology. It's rather associated with the willingness and the ability of the government, economic, social, and administrative system that are resilient enough to handle the challenges about in the new economic era that we are moving into. What can we do better to improve Hamilton? Wonder more about where the issue has started, not wonder when it will come to an end. It might just be the nature of teenage rebellions, but at the end of the day, I believe the decision should be made by the adults. But the decision should be made in a such way that when the teenagers become the adults, when we look back at those decisions, and we would have been proud of them. Thank you. And it's your question time, I suppose.
Yeah, sure. So we'll start with Councillor Angela.
Thank you. Thank you, students, for being willing to be part of the democratic process. You should all be very, very proud of yourselves. Can I ask you, how did you canvass students to come up with a consensus on what you would be submitting on today?
I guess the idea was we just kind of read through the 10-year plan and looked at the issues which popped up first to us, and we were starting to learn about like poverty, so it kind of interlinked together and we could see how we could talk about it.
And did you do that with your class?
No, just mostly of us as a group discussing that.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Councillor Paula.
We also had an individual student come and submit yesterday as well on her own behalf, so it's good to see. So your view on the affordability of Hamilton at the moment is to have a slower, lower transition to rates and a slower introduction of the new work across time. To focus more on the maintenance of the city as it is now, from what you said about transport. Is that the consensus of your submission?
Yeah, that is the big idea.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Councillor Mark.
Thank you, and again, congratulations on your submission. It's fantastic to see. I noticed in one of them you were talking about bike stations. Are you talking about bike parks, or what sort of facility are you dreaming of there?
Just kind of ideas of how transport could be more available. So yeah, kind of the bike stations, like you can come and pick one up, use it for the day and return it.
Oh yeah,
like in other countries they have that sort of thing.
Okay, thanks guys.
Councillor Siggy, last question. No. Okay, thank you very much. Before you leave, can I get each of you to introduce yourself by sitting down and saying your name for the record, because this is all online. So I'll just get you to move through the microphones and introduce your names, yourselves by your names.
I'm Sarah Neil King.
I'm Harry Lee.
I'm Stephanie Yang.
I'm Xiaoran Sun.
I'm Jack Shepherd. My name is Jason Yuan. Thanks. I'm Krishna Laganda.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much for coming. We're very proud of you, and if you keep stepping up to responsibility, you will become the next leaders of your families, of our town, and of our country. So thanks for all you do. Brian Square. So Brian, you have 4 minutes. The clock's on the bottom right-hand corner of the electronic screen. Start when you're ready, and welcome. No, you don't need to touch anything.
Thank you. So I'm Brian, businessman and director here in Hamilton, and this is a personal submission from me. Thanks to Mayor Andrew and councillors and HCC staff for your time this morning, or fast approaching this afternoon. Generally, I'm in support of the long-term plan. Generally. I just have a couple of questions around Challenge 4, the proposed community projects, specifically Garden Place and Central City Park. Given the combined total is not a lot of money, it's probably chump change, really, in terms of the scheme of things. Yet I believe the value of these projects in the public realm is higher than the dollars associated with them. In principle, then, I support doing something to engender civic pride in Garden Place, and I support the river plan that is enhancing and providing multiple links to the river. My opposition concerns the detail of the scope and the scale of these two projects as they are presented. The 3 principles behind my points. Firstly, do it once, do it right. Secondly, disagreement is not the same as disrespect, and I want to say, although I disagree with some of the proponents of these, I deeply respect the group, the consortium that are behind it. Deeply do. Matt, Brian, Steve. And the third thing is, don't be out with the bathwater. I don't want us to do nothing. Rather, what we do, I want us to do judiciously. In terms of Garden Place, the public space like this is a transition zone. People move through it. It is an event space. It provides a public stage, or a canvas, if you will, for things to take place. It is also a place for people to stop, relax, eat lunch, refresh, etc. The HCC LTP proposal, rather, seems to be turning a pedestrian area into a road and car park. And in my view, this isolates the shops and offices at the edge from Garden Place. It becomes a barrier. Does not activate the place any more than Knox Street car park activates Knox Street. It flies in the face of research on shared space and pedestrianisation. Shared space is turning a car-dominant road into a safer pedestrian use space. International research is replete. There's a bunch of stuff in my submission. 83% increase in retailing and 63% increase in restaurant use patronage when a pedestrian strategy is implemented. So cars are not the answer commercially either. I also see a refresh in the inner part of Garden Place, which has been proposed. Refreshing an environment is a good thing, generally. It's nice to have. When I come home sometimes and the lounge is completely rearranged, it's kind of nice for a season. The key for long-term sustainable success and civic pride in Garden Place is people, is getting people to it for things to do, things to see, and things to experience. And so do it once, do it. Pause, spend a little money now, facilitate and manage events proactively. Let's learn how it can work through the process. And then with this experience and imminent research, design it then. The learnings and evidence could well provide a brief for a design competition. And I'm happy to give my time pro bono if you want me to be on the judging panel for that. I want something to happen in Garden Place. Something needs to happen in Garden Place. Placemaking in the public realm, by definition, requires public engagement and discourse. This is what I have tried to do in recent months, and you'll be aware of that, I'm sure. Nice at Central City Park. I'm a fan of the river plan. It's multi-penetrations through the river. What I see here is a bit of a scorched earth approach. And I think it talks about, the concept's been given, but it talks in the plan about money being put aside from master planning. So we've done a master plan it, that's reverse. Do a master plan and then design the detail afterwards. I suggest strongly a master planning process in lieu of rushing into the project as it's been proposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. No, time's up.
Sorry about that, a bit longer than I thought.
You're welcome to talk offline.
Talk to me afterwards. Yeah. Thank you.
Edward Hardy. So Edward's presenting for ACE Swimming. You have 9 minutes. It's on the bottom right-hand corner of the electronic screen. Welcome, thank you for coming. Start when you're ready.
Dear Mayor and Councillors, look, today my name is Edward Hardy and I represent the 8 aquatic clubs and Swim Waikato who regularly use the Waterworld complex and have done so for decades. Collectively, the organisations represent over 1,000 sports people who use the complex or have done until its recent closure. Our submission is simple. We want a review undertaken with involvement from us and the recreational people who use it, whether a community trust would be a better structure for the complex. To be clear, we don't have an issue with the current management. And in speaking with people over the last year, our thoughts have solidified on this, and really our conclusion is that the governance and the way the complex is run is flawed. It just doesn't work properly and it doesn't work well. Sometimes we find that sometimes we're almost in competition with the council, which isn't where we want to be. We want to be in a lot better space. We think a community trust has the ability to enable the complex to plan over longer periods and with stability and non-politicalisation. We know more out of the current complex under well, we believe we can under a trust structure with our thinkings and thoughts, and a lot more could be achieved for the recreational and sports people who would use the facility. With a community trust, we see the ability to bring the community better together and to source funds from and to increase the facility capabilities. We think the idea of the community trust enables a better commercial and volunteer model to run the facility. Look, I'll end it there, and I think what I'll do is I'll just, I mean, the submission is there, you can read that, perhaps use the rest of the time for questions.
Councillor Siggy.
Thank you so much for your submission. You said sometimes you're in competition with the council. Could you just give me an example for that? In which...
Yeah, I guess some of that is, one of the, talking about the clubs, some of the issues is around sharing lane space. So some of that is through the growth of the Learn to Swim program, limits the ability for the clubs to grow and bring other swimmers in. So we'd like a lot more, the idea of bring people through that Learn to Swim program, get them introduced and comfortable working around water, and then encourage them to go into different sports, canoe club, water polo, underwater hockey or swimming. But there's that lack of transition. We think if we bring that all into one body, then we can do a lot better with that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Paula.
Good. We've been talking a lot around the need for more swim space in City Hall, and especially lane space for swimming. Is your view, though, that this situation could also be improved by increased recreational swimming facilities?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So not just the club swimming lanes, but for the general public to play
very much
and
so.
enjoy water?
Yeah, look, this is not clubs trying to claim more space. This is thinking how, you know, we're the 4th largest city in New Zealand. We've got a very lacklustre swimming complex. We've got the likes of wave pool, some of those fun type things. We think if we can put that into community trust, I mean, look, there's one not far away, Waipa works very well. Go Waipa, I've spoken to Move on that, and that seems to be a good model. That's actually working well there. But some of the process we think is in the ability, if we've got surety of the plan, we can plan together and we can look at things, we can target different sponsorship or commercial activities to enable other things to happen, whether they're the likes of wave pools or other things in that recreational. We've got We think it's a tremendous asset, but we think if we have a lot more coordination in one body and ring fence it so it doesn't become political, it becomes quite a focused group, and so it's
and the potential to draw in more philanthropic money you're suggesting.
Yeah, definitely. Yep, and also that we think also in that community idea that we can tap into some of that volunteer time and other things to help run it, but also that we can use the space better as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Leo.
This morning we had a triathlete in here who was training at Gallagher Pool, I think it was. And she tells us that it's now cheaper to train at Fastlane. Yeah. Would you people see that you would reduce the entry fees and that sort of stuff through a community trust? And that
yeah, look, definitely, Leo. One of the ideas is, you know, if we're a lot more coordinated in that approach, the idea is to make it more accessible. We want more people to use it. You know, we can be there in the mornings and we can have, this is sort of pre-disclosure, we could have 3 lanes there, but we see the potential to bring in those triathletes and other people in and have the whole pool working a lot more of the time. And we think there's a method to do that, a process to do that, a structure to do that.
Okay. Yeah.
Great, thank you very much for your submission. Okay. And yeah.
Very good. Thank you, Matt. Councillors.
Catherine Drew and Mark Morgan for Waikato Regional Airport Limited and Titanium Park. You have 9 minutes. The time's in the bottom right-hand corner of the electronic board. Start when you're ready. The clock will start once you start. And welcome. You don't need to touch your microphone, so I'll do their own thing.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. This submission is probably different to what you've heard from other parties, and that we're not here to complain about rates increases or anything, but we're here to talk about the big picture in terms of the airport and the growth that's happening. Just being circulated now is just a little plan that we've prepared to help provide some context. So the purpose of this submission is really to outline the reason why we're here today, and the importance of the airport as an asset to Hamilton City, and that decisions that Hamilton City make directly affect the airport and the growth of the business park there. So really what I wanted to do is just highlight on the key points of our submission. So this submission has been presented on behalf of 2 entities, being the Waikato Regional Airport Limited and Titanium Park Limited. So the Waikato Regional Airport Limited is the owner and certified operator of the airport, and it's owned by 5 territorial authorities, including Hamilton City. Basically, that entity carries out the airport operations and covers approximately 170 hectares of land. So that's the main runway that you can see through that diagram provided. Titanium Park Limited is the entity that's been established to manage the development of the business park land that is administered by the airport. And such land is provided for airport business development in the Waipa District Plan, and has been progressively developed for industrial purposes. So turning to the plan, I just wanted to highlight some of the areas that are actually in the airport's control. So there's 3 areas that I've identified. The central precinct in red, which is directly north of the existing terminal and north of State Highway 21. The southern precinct, and then obviously to the northwestern side of the runway is a land area called the northern precinct, and 40 hectares of that land is zoned for airport business growth, with the remainder of the 100 hectare site earmarked for future development area. Also provided on this plan, just from a context perspective, is the designated alignment for Southern Links. So that's what you can see in terms of the orange. So effectively that shows the land area is quite substantial for the airport, and shows the proximity of Southern Links to the airport. Yeah, and the other thing shown on the plan is just some small X's there that indicates the land that actually the Crown has actually already purchased to give effect to Southern Links as well. So this context is important because the airport and Titanium Park, whilst it's not directly in Hamilton City's control, the funding decisions that the council makes will have a direct impact on the future development of the airport. Consequently, that's why we're here presenting this submission today. The key points from our submission is that the airport is regionally significant infrastructure, and the business land around the airport is also of regional significance and is recognised as such, and they're both recognised as such in the RPS. These two elements interact to create a key regional transport business hub. Connections to and from the airport are consequently very important, as are any opportunities to improve those connections, such as Southern Links. The airport has recently experienced increased development interest of its 3 precincts and is investing in infrastructure required to support. This includes the Northern Precinct, where we're currently working on the master plan for the development of this site to release its development potential. So with that context, the airport supports the development of Peacock's growth cell over Rotokauri and associated financial commitments for transport connections to Hamilton, such as the new bridge. Development of Peacocks is supported on the basis that such development will further enable the allocation of funding and advancement of works on the Southern Links project. So the long-term infrastructure strategy that forms part of the LTP has recognised the development of Peacocks will not generate the south of the city, but will also have added benefit of enabling investment in the Southern Links. As we all understand, the long-term vision for Southern Links is embedded in various strategic city and district, regional and national policy documents, and is integral to the growth of Hamilton City, including the Peacock's growth cell, and continued development of Titanium Park and Airport. Southern Links is also an important roading network for maintaining and improving efficient connections between the airport and Hamilton City without undue congestion. It's our opinion that the ability to release the development potential of Peacocks through providing suitable roading connections like Southern gives effect to the National Policy Statement on Urban Development Capacity and the draft GPS on land transport that's recently been released. More specifically, the GPS identifies the strategic direction is to provide a land transport system that provides increased access to economic and social opportunity. Both Hamilton City, the Waikato Regional Council and the New Zealand Transport Agency have all identified that there's a clear economic development and transport need for the Southern Links network. On this basis, it's requested the development of Peacock's growth cell is preferred over Rotokauri or other cells, and the capital expenditure decisions made by Hamilton Council favour Peacocks. In addition to supporting the development of Peacocks, our review of the long-term infrastructure strategy has identified that there's a capital expenditure decision that relates to defining the long-term future development in around the city. So in other words, what will be the future growth cells? As part of that, it actually even tags the Southern Links area. So if I turn back to the map again, you'll see that directly north of the green Northern Precinct, there's a pocket of land which is admittedly under one district council's control, but it basically is topographically severed by Southern Links from Hamilton City and becomes potentially a no man's land between what will be the Northern Precinct industrial development and Southern Links. So it's what the airport entities would like is that they do support that future investigation being undertaken into future growth cells. And however, we request that that funding allocation is provided for this year and not in 2019 as suggested. The reasoning for this is to bring forward the funding will enable the investigation to align Phase 2 work that Future Proof is undertaking, which will also address the National Policy Statement on Urban Development Capacity. So whilst I recognise that that land is not within Hamilton City, it's important that Future Proof, Hamilton City and Waikato Council are having big picture discussions about the land use south of the city, including that land up to the airport, and such discussions should be had concurrently to the Future Proof review and not in 2019. So a couple of the other things that are not specifically mentioned in our submission but warrant discussion today is that part of the exercise that the airport is actually doing is looking at their future proofing and what that sort of looks like. So you also see on that plan we've annotated an area which is potential terminal relocation, and that's basically covers some of the northern precinct and also juts into the airport cross runway location there too. So big picture wise, the airport is thinking that the growth of Hamilton will come south, but there's also a need for us to potentially move to the north of the airport and provide accessibility to infrastructure such as Southern Links, and also thinking that through, whilst there's no designated corridor for any rail, then that's something that we need to start having discussions with Future-Proof, Hamilton City and Waipā District and the New Zealand Transport Agency as well, about how those connections can be provided for and secured in the future. So thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and my apologies, I should introduce the gentleman beside me. Yeah, just Mark, I'm supported here by Mark Morgan, the CEO of the Hamilton Airport.
Councillor...
Sorry. He knew everyone in the room to start with, so...
We'll just move into questions. Councillor Paula.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Hello. Just interested in the potential relocation of the terminal, and is there any thought to what the trigger point for moving from the south to, well, that one side to the other, basically? What would make that viable? When would you do that?
Well, I think that at this point it's purely conceptual in terms of future-proofing land for such a consideration, particularly as it moves into some of the already designated airport business land. I think the triggers would be as we've discussed, the infrastructure triggers around Southern Links rail, but and most importantly, I think the organic growth of the airport in terms of commercial passenger numbers. So I think for us, it's a 20, 30-year consideration. It's not if I was trying to frame it, it's not a 5 or 10-year consideration.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Carey.
Thank you. You mentioned rail right at the very end there. What are your ideas about rail?
Well, look, I think that the general principle being that currently Southern Links, I think, doesn't provide, isn't designated land for a rail connection to the current rail network. So we certainly want to raise that again. We've raised it via perhaps Future-Proof and other discussions, and I think it just needs a consideration around whether or not there should be a designation of land for a rail corridor, depending, of course, on the whole growth, I guess, of the upper North Island over the next, again, 20 or 30 years.
So this is another big long term.
This is a long term, absolutely, Gary. It's not. It's just something that we think if there isn't a protection or a consideration now, then the risk is Southern Links is developed and there isn't an option to bring rail in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Just one of the out there thoughts is your east-west strip there.
Sharkfin.
Yes.
When that becomes an international east-west strip, you're going to need to get NZ underground there through roads there. So maybe it's time to talk before they do it. Long-term thinking, just a thought.
Yeah, so
Thank you, Mayor.
Just on that, we already have a designation to extend the runway that we haven't given effect to, and that actually provides the ability for some of those larger aircraft to land there too, within the confines.
No, I'm talking about your east-west.
Oh, the east-west this way.
And we don't have enough. We wouldn't have enough distance, Mayor, for east-west in terms of the length of.
There's plenty of farms to the west.
I was going to say without further land acquisition, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you for the good job you're doing out there with the airport. Okay, we have Hamilton City Netball Centre, David Blewett and Monica Legos, I think. So. Okay, you have 9 minutes. Your time's on the bottom right-hand corner of the electronic board. Start when you're ready, and thank you for coming.
Thank you. So my name's David Blewett, and representing Hamilton Netball Centre. You would have received a submission from Phil Lyons regarding what we're here for today. pretty much we're not looking to spend any extra council money. It's just trying to bring forward some of the money that's been tagged for court development down at the centre. Thank you.
Actually, we haven't heard Phil Lyons'
So this is Phil. So Phil used to be the centre manager and he's moved on, so we've taken over from that presenting.
You've got me instead.
Yeah, we've got Mons. Right. So just as a bit of background, we've got the presentation up the front there. In a season, you know, we have 5,000 players going through the centre, close to 4,000 games coming through. We represent, you know, down at the centre we've got school teams from year 1 to the end of secondary school, then adult teams, open grade teams and business house teams all operating from the hub down there. And as well as, you know, as well as developing players, we're also developing coaches, umpires, officials and volunteers from the centre. The premises down there were opened back in 1985, so that's over 30 years ago, and we're sort of looking forward to the next 30 years and what we want to be doing down there. Premises down there getting pretty tired and unsuitable in some areas, and we're quite mindful that, you know, we are a hub that's community hub that's generally 9,000 people come through there each week. Looking forward, next 20, 30 years, we want to make sure it's sort of fit for purpose and keeping up to standard. Just who's been down to the courts in the last 2 years? Good. Who's been down on a Saturday? Ah, good, chaos. Right. So just a bit of background there. Who owns what? The council owns the land and the courts, and the Hamilton City Netball Centre leases that land. Council also owns the amenities block and the car park, and the Hamilton Netball Centre owns the pavilion. We built that, was it 30 years ago? We built that 30 years ago. That includes the office space, that 2-storey block. And there's a picture there. You can see the pavilion on the right, which Hamilton City Netball Centre owns. On the left is the amenities block with the toilets and what have you in there. And there's the courts in the evenings. Okay. In the 2023-24 financial year, the council has allocated $1.1 million for the court base and asphalt replacement, just as part of an assets management plan. And what we're proposing is that the council bring that contribution forward to the spring and summer of 2019, and also allow that money to be used to fund the amenities block improvements that we want to do. And the main reason for that is that with the Hamilton City Council owning that amenities block, if they're spending money on it, then they're enhancing a Hamilton City Council asset. And for us as Hamilton Netball, it's easier for us to get funding for court development as opposed to trying to get funding for an amenities block which is owned by the council. So funders don't necessarily want to fund a council building or to improve it. Talk about that dated and stuff.
My turn. Thank you. There is a saying, you come this way but once, but I've been before and I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to be still representing Hamilton Netball. And I would first like to say how much we as an organisation appreciate the opportunity we've had over the very long period of time that we've been at Minogue Park to work so effectively with City Council, with the staff, the ground staff, with the people that look after that facility for us down there, and we're always grateful. I think the thing I want to reiterate is that we're not here to ask for more money. We're really asking for a transfer of the funding that is being made available to us. We believe would be a more logistic and a more logical way to spend that funding. That money will go a tremendous way towards enhancing what is already a great community facility. The building itself, the amenities block, is very good. It was built in 1985 and there's been very little upgrade to those concrete-based toilets area, changing area, since that time. And we believe that we owe it to our members and to the community to enhance that building to be a much more comfortable place for people to be. We also believe that we are in a better position to actually apply through our contacts and through our groups, we're led to believe that we would get better opportunities for funding to cover the cost of the court development, which is also an urgent. But we would like to think that the council funding that's been designated for netball be transferred from the court area to the actual enhancing of the building. We see that as a really important aspect of the way in which we can meet the needs of our netball community. So that's where we're coming from. We really want to upgrade. We want to maintain what is already an excellent sporting facility. It is central. We know you all have trouble parking there, but tell me where there isn't a problem with parking. And we just love the fact that we can look out those windows on a Saturday or during the week and see so many people actively involved or else supporting of our young people in this community. So please think about the way in which we can bring that funding forward, the way in which we can maintain what we believe is a really already a top-class sporting facility.
And so just to look at the facility up there, so that's the amenities block there. What we'd look to do is put an extension onto the end of that, and as well put a physio first aid room and just make it more modernised for what we want to do for the next 20 years. When it comes to costing, we're proposing that 1.1 million is used for the amenities upgrade and for the extension, and then what Hamilton Netball Centre would do is go out and find funding for the court surface and court foundation. And as Mons has said, it's about us trying to plan for the future, and with your assistance, we can sort of keep that facility maintained, upgrade it, and look forward to the future as a hub for the netball community. And we've sort of been working with your Hamilton City Council staff these ideas, and we've sort of been working through with them, as well as Sport Waikato and other funders as well. So in summary, for us, it's about moving the 1.8 million of funding from 2023 to the 2019-2020 year. The council moves that funding towards the, and just a reminder that we're not actually requesting any additional funding, it's just moving forward what funding has been set.
Councillor Rob.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, David and Monica, for your presentation. Just trying to get my head around the amenities, what part of it is retired and is a renewal, and roughly what the value is of what you call the upgrade.
Okay. So
you've got 1.18 million in there. Presumably some of it's renewal of things that have been there, that are worn out and just need replacing. And the physio room extension, is that?
So the extension gives us room for physio, first aid, as well as a bit of extra storage room down there. The extension itself is probably around 260,000. Yep. And to do the upgrade of that amenities block is actually closer to 760,000, which seems extreme. But there's, with the building, it's got a glass between the top of the wall and the roof, so it's probably needs some strengthening in there around earthquake rulings. So that's why it's probably a bit higher than what we would have otherwise wanted.
Okay, so within what you call the upgrade, there is work too, which would be just replacing what's already there.
Toilets,
showers. Worn out since 1985.
Yeah, definitely.
We're really bringing it up to the needs of the day.
Yeah, yeah. So it's not really an upgrade, it's a renewal.
Yeah, okay. Yep, fair comment. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Last question, Councillor Mark.
Thanks, Mayor Andrew. So we, both the court and the amenity block are council facilities, is that right?
Correct.
So, and you alluded to the fact that your funders would be more willing to fund if they saw that we were getting behind the amenity block. What indication have you had that they would fund the courts without our help?
A pretty good indication, because if we funding that from a sport perspective, they can see that yes, we're getting new netball courts down there, and we can solely dedicate netball. Away we go.
Right.
Not a sexy funding and amenities block, which is sort of Yeah, it's to do with netball, but it's a community facility.
Yeah,
so being able to fund the courts, we have a better chance of getting funding, and yes, we have approached funders about that.
Right, yeah.
Yep, and they're quite keen. Yep.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Right, thank you. Thank you for your time.
And thank you for what you do, and Monica, for over a long period of time. That's, yeah, and thank you, David. Okay, Sue Griffin. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Sue. You have...
Oops, a little bit more. Thank you.
You have 4 minutes, Sue. The time's on the electronic board on the bottom right. It includes questions, and welcome. Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you. And my name, as you hear, is Sue Griffin, and I am here to air my concerns about Garden Place policies and projects, and I appreciate my opportunity to do so. But as a resident of Garden Place, I think my perspective is somewhat different from the council's, and I would just like to make people aware of the fact that this is not purely a city area, it's a mixed residential area. And therefore, although I do support Matt Stark and his vision of a city on the river, I don't support his idea of car parks and parking space in Garden Place. I don't want to open my front door onto a road, and I don't want to have cars parked under my balcony all day. With due respect, the parking is not monitored correctly at the present time, and it's unlikely that you would continue to do any better if it was made into parking. The grassed area, looking at the plans that were presented, shows quite a largely reduced amount of grass, which again reduces the permeation of rainwater to the earth, which is something that most cities are trying to encourage. So instead, I would suggest the following: why could we not do one way south along Worley Road as it already is, and continuing south along Alexandra, although it's not one way on Worley, it is a shared space. So shared space one way down Worley Place and Alexandra, east along Collingwood up to Victoria, then continue one way north on Victoria Street and back west via Ward Street. If this was made one way, it's only 1 block difference from cutting east and west through Garden Place, and it would surely allow space for parking along the length of the one-way, which would create the parking that you're looking for, as well as a more suitable pedestrian area for this middle of the city. I don't really agree that there's a terribly lot of shady people in Garden Place any more than there is anywhere else in the city. The main shady looking people at the moment are adult, yes, apart from here, adult members that are not students who are living in a building there that was, as I understand it, consented for student accommodation. They're aggressive and they have got very poor social skills, and that to me is the biggest thing. And I've lived there for 15 years and I don't find it an issue. So I'm just asking that you consider the fact that there is more than 23 individual residences in Garden Place. We don't want to have a road going past our doors. And I don't feel that a roading system would help with the public attitude. So thank you for listening.
Councillor James.
Thank you, Sue, for your submission. I just want some clarification on question 8 here, where you said that the following projects you do not want to go ahead, which was the dog area, in-ground recreation or indoor recreation facility, and the playground development, because you've just been speaking against Garden Place, but you didn't tick that.
I'm running out of time, that's why. My thoughts, are you asking why I don't want those?
I was just wanting to see if that was correct, because...
That is correct. I feel that playground is a misuse of funds.
Yep.
Suburban mothers with young children are not the people that have money in their pockets to spend in the businesses. They're not the people, they're not going to come into a destination playground from the suburbs. If they're going to, they're going to go to the lake. The playground will become just a place that vagrants or anybody else can use to the detriment of Garden Place, and I don't think it helps. It just doesn't help. There's a playground in Central Place already.
Yeah. So you don't want Garden Place to be redeveloped then?
I'm not saying I don't want it to be redeveloped. I'm saying I don't feel it's beneficial to have the east-west corridors going along the north-south borders of Garden Place, all parking. We need to keep the green, and we need to keep the permeability of water. We need more trees, more cafe, more monitoring of parking, etc.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sue, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, Thomas Hakarara. Yes.
Just to clarify, elected members, Thomas made a submission to the 10-year plan and the rating.
Okay. So,
good afternoon. Dear Mayor and Councillors, my name is Thomas Hakaraya and I have lived in Hamilton for over 20 years. I opt to keep the rating system the same as it is now and no stage transition to capital value rating and no high rate increase. We had a referendum under the previous council and it was ignored. Hamiltonians did not want a change from land value to capital. I believe in a return to land value as capital value is unaffordable for a majority of ratepayers, renters and people on no middle incomes and businesses in Hamilton. I wish to mention Garden Place. We do not need any more changes there. A spend of proposed 3.2 million is a lot of money, and a destination playground where there is a thoroughfare traffic is not appropriate because of young children. If they're going to have the playground, they'll be running around, and I think it's not appropriate for here. Thank you.
For your submission. Are there any questions from members? We have one from Gary Mallett.
Thanks, Thomas. How are we doing this?
Ask your question and if I need to assist.
Okay. Thomas, thank you. You were quite clear that you didn't want rates to go up. You also just want some clarity. At the moment, we are going from capital land value to capital value over 10 years, and you don't want to do that at all.
No, I believe that we should stay with land value.
Okay. So you're not that we're going over 10 years or that we're going to do it all tomorrow. Yeah. You don't want us to do it at all?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Martin Gallagher.
Just on the Garden Place, you're concerned that an adventure playground will be unsafe if vehicles are close by moving cars.
That's right, because they go through along there.
Sure.
And every time I'm going, say, to the pop-up library and that, I always have to watch out for cars going through. If you're going children around,
running,
you know.
Yes, point. Thank you for that point. Thank you.
Thank you for your submission. There's no further questions.
I do have one on the rating review.
Okay, you can start now.
Okay, thank you. the mayor and councillors, I believe we should stay with land value and not transcend to capital value rating system. I am a renter, and a changed capital value would see my increase higher than it is now. I am speaking not only for myself, but also for other Hamiltonians that would be affected by a change in the rating system. Please reconsider. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your submission. There are no questions on that part. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we just have a couple of points while all members are here. One is that Democracy have asked that you ensure if you leave your chair or to leave the room that you remove your card from the holder. This is quite critical. It's quite critical members for Democracy to record who's here and when they're not during the submission process. So could you do that? And I'll just, Deputy Mayor.
I'm just going to take the opportunity as an ordinary elected member just to note my apology, urgent dentist at 2, and then Councillor Pascoe and myself will be having to leave early evening for the other civic obligation we have.
What obligation?
Fun? No, I'm just, given as the DC, I'm formally noting, I'm just, given the formality of the hearings, I'm just asking that be noted, given the submission process, as to the reason that we're formally having to leave for civic duty, but also I have to do an emergency thing. All right.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Can I just hand over to Julie, who has something to say as well?
The next submitter, Amber Williams, her submission from Hamilton Girls High was received after the submission date had closed. However, we have slotted her in for a verbal submission, and you have a copy of her submission in front of you.
Thank you, Amber. You can come over when you're ready. So you can bring up a third chair if you like. Yeah, Amber, you're sitting in the right place.
Just for clarification, Amber is our PA who organised. Jaden will introduce herself. I'm Jill Carter, Acting Principal, and Katrina Whanga, Deputy Principal. Hand over to Jaden.
Okay, so you have 9 minutes to speak. Your time is on the bottom right-hand screen of the electronic screen, sorry, and welcome, thank you for coming.
Thank you. Nā koutou katoa, ko tau piri te maunga, ko waikato te awa, ko taunui te iwi, ko taunui te waka, ko Ngāti Pāwa me Ngāti Whawhā ki auku hapu, ko Waiti te marae, ko Jaden Randall tōku ingoa. Kia ora everybody, my name is Jaden Randall, and I have the honour of serving as head girl at Hamilton Girls High School. Hamilton Girls High School is a school that provides many outstanding opportunities and tools to guide our students to become wise women. The education that we as students receive is powerful, but HCHS is more than just education. It's a school that values diversity and change and supports the growth of an individual in her journey. Hamilton Girls High takes pride in being a multicultural school with about 55 ethnic groups, Māori, Pasifika, Asian and European, to name a few. We are proud to have about 3% of our students identifying as Tainui. The current roll is approximately 1,700 with 121 teaching staff. Hamilton Girls High makes me proud not only because of the education and the opportunities, but because of the way that the school nurtures the growth of girls finding who they are and where they come from. No te rauro, nāku te rauro, ka ora i te iwi. With your basket and my basket, the people will thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaden. Our proposal is that Council considers supporting in their 10-year plan a Central City Performance, Health and Wellbeing Centre to be based at Hamilton Girls High School but available to the wider community for use. Due to the location of our school in the CBD, we are extremely hindered by a lack of space. The introduction of new classrooms and redevelopments are limited due to the restriction of land availability. However, we do feel deeply and passionately about the importance that a high-performance health and wellbeing centre can play in the lives of our young women. The proposal is for a multi-purpose facility, including 4 to 6 indoor netball courts, an international court, 4 to 6 outdoor courts, and a high-performance area and fitness centre. This project would allow for use by netball, basketball and volleyball, as well as general use of the fitness facilities. We are also looking into linking an upgrade of our swimming pool so that this could be available to the community. We believe this facility would have a positive influence on the students of Hamilton Girls High School, which in turn would be positive for the community of Hamilton, as well as having direct benefits for the community.
Our rationale for the proposal is encapsulated in the phrase sport and recreation build stronger, healthier, happier, safer communities. While most women know that they should exercise and that it is physically good, often it is not enough of an incentive for some to work out. While there are a myriad of reasons why someone may not follow through with exercise plans, perhaps one major reason is simply lack of knowledge and availability of suitable venues. The addition of a new performance health and wellbeing centre could provide the facility suitable for not only our students but women in the community to meet and gain the benefits that regular exercise can provide. Building this facility is important to Hamilton Girls High School because it will not only provide a centre that encompasses physical fitness, health and wellbeing, but also provide a platform for our senior students to put into practice the skills they've learned in their core classes. For example, students taking the personal training course could work with families, members of the community to provide training programs and nutrition advice, and the early childhood course could also assist with the running of a creche, thus making it a meaningful and real-life experience for all parties involved. It will enable our girls to develop the confidence, competencies and habits to proactively monitor and manage their health and wellbeing, an approach that will positively inform their adult years. It will become a new community hub that will not only benefit our students, but the wider community.
We believe this is important for the wider community because it will provide a central city venue which a variety of groups can use. We've already had discussions with Waikato Bay of Plenty Netball, who are desperate for some indoor court venues, and Basketball Waikato. This aligns with Council's goal to draw people into the central city. Hamilton Girls High School already provides venues and facilities for community use. We already have that model in place. Our auditorium is used weekly for a large church group, community cultural groups, such as there's a Chinese group, Indian group, South African group, who use our facilities. The school and hostel combine to offer accommodation and conference venues. Sport and not-for-profit groups use our current gym, and sector-specific meetings are held at our school. The proposed Performance Health and Wellbeing Centre will build on these links and continue to draw local and national groups into the central city. In conclusion, we believe that the proposed Performance Health and Wellbeing Centre will be a real asset to Hamilton City. Whilst the plans are not finalised yet, they're actually with the architect at the moment doing the final tweaking, the projected cost is in the order of $10 million. The Ministry of Education have agreed to fund approximately $1.8 million in the year plan, and Hamilton Girls High School have plans to fundraise and develop partnerships. We're asking that Hamilton City Council come on board and consider supporting this project also. We thank you for your consideration and for fitting us in at such late notice. Thank you.
Councillor Siggy.
Thank you so much for your submission. And look, you probably are aware that we have in our 10-year plan, we have got the indoor recreation facility in conjunction with the university. And so you would put that as well, yes, at the same time. And we had just the netball here and they want upgrades and everything. And I missed out on one of the questions, which was who does use the netball facilities mainly? Is it males or females? And I think that goes with what you're doing there as well, isn't it? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dave.
Knowing your current gym, I can see why replacement is needed.
Fairly crucial.
Yes. I'm surprised it's still standing. But I see the ministry's only proposing to fund a small part of it. Are they really supporting it? Because 1.8 million would not get a replacement even for a single netball court?
And my understanding is that the ministry are not supporting a lot of big projects at the moment, so they will do a portion, and the onus is on the school to find the rest of the funds.
Though at Rototuna High that was different.
Big new school, and that's where the ministry is putting their funding.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Councillor Paula.
School, since you said that about Boys High, Mr. Mayor. This is my school, right?
It's a sister school.
Just, in terms of this idea, how much conversation have you had with the City Council in terms of the planning, strategic planning, thought, development of it at this stage?
At this stage, I think there has been a few discussions. I don't think there have been in-depth discussions. Yeah, I think we're sort of beginning our process in terms of
So would you be looking
networks.
to get the Hamilton City Council involved in a strategic level as soon as possible?
I would hope so.
Okay, thank you.
And last question, Councillor Deputy Mayor Martin.
Well, I was on the Board of Governors of Girls High as well, so I also don't misconstrue this statement. Massively envious of your head and students' fluency in one of our official languages, and we hope to see her around this council table or in the Parliament at some stage.
We do too.
I guess. I guess a question. I respect that the schools you had a fence put in because of vandalism, and I get that. But obviously, with the outdoor netball courts and that kind of thing, you're going to be developing a mechanism.
Deputy Mayor, can you come to your question, please?
Well, I just want to probably the access. If it's a community facility, how do you manage the access? Respect, you have to secure your buildings and protect your plant and equipment, but it's just that kind of community access issue.
That has been an issue with the other community uses that I've spoken of. They're generally organised ahead of time, and there are gates that we then organise to be opened.
Sure. No, that's fine. Great, and I acknowledge your Performing Arts Centre. Fantastic facility.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Wendy Embling. So Wendy, you have 4 minutes. Your time's on the bottom right-hand corner of the electronic board, and start when you're ready. The clock won't start until you're organised, and also welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Wendy Embling. My husband and I own a home in Flagstaff where we've lived for more than 10 years. We have 3 children, aged 9, 11 and 13, and they attend Te Totra Primary School and Rototuna Junior High School. Before I begin, I'd like to thank the Council for the Information Day held at the Peak at Rototuna High School. I have 3 submissions I want to make today. First, I want to strongly support the development of the Rototuna Community Hub, including the library and aquatic centre. In the Flagstaff and Rototuna areas has been going ahead for many years, and the commercial and community facilities need to catch up in order to relieve the pressure on the surrounding commercial areas and the roading network. Second, I want to strongly support the development of the Rototuna Park, including an artificial turf for hockey. The Rototuna Flagstaff area has a high population of families and children who play sport. Providing these facilities locally will reduce the pressure on already overwhelmed sports fields elsewhere. Third, I want to propose that a skate park be included as part of the Rototuna Sports Park. Here are my reasons for this. The sports park is to be located in an area which has a high population of families and in close proximity to a number of schools to which they already ride bikes, scooters and skateboards. A skate park would provide a healthy outdoor play option for children and appeals to a broader age group than the playgrounds currently being constructed by the council. The council already owns the land for the park, And from my discussions with officers at the information day, there would be sufficient room to include a skate park as part of that development. A skate park could be designed and built to fit the land available and to meet the desires of the local community. Schools and community groups could be involved in the planning stages. A purpose-built skate park would reduce the likelihood of children skateboarding or scootering within the proposed Rotorua Town Centre. Now, in case it's been time since you've visited a skate park or a recently developed skate park, I've provided some photos of some recent skate park developments elsewhere in the North Island. These are not off the internet, these are photos of my children at these various skate parks. And I do have some hard copies too, if that would be useful, but this is Hastings, Tauranga, Omakaroa. This is a skate path. Mount Maunganui, Albany, and Te Puke. The Te Puke one just opened last year. In all of these photos, you can see how well the skate park fits into the surrounding park environment. You can see the number of children enjoying the park, both boys and girls of all ages, and the range of equipment being used, bikes, scooters, and skateboards. So perhaps quite different to a traditional skate park that might have first come to mind. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Wendy. There are no questions. So.
Thanks.
All right, members, we'll break for lunch. We'll restart at 1:45, just before. Do you need them? Any members?
No, the first
so,
person's not here.
Yeah, somebody else will be here. So 1:45 back here. Thank you.